90% of hackers swear by CounterSurveil. Let's dive in and find out. In the labyrinthine world of cyberspace, every click leaves a trace. But with CounterSurveil, you become the unseen. Our podcast takes you deep into the heart of hacking, where firewalls crumble and secrets unravel. From white hat heroes to shadowy code warriors, we cover the spectrum. Join us on IronGeek, your portal to mastering the art of stealth and strategy. Discover the tools, the tricks, and the tales that define the modern hacker. Tune in and transform from a curious novice into a digital legend. This is CounterSurveil. Unmask the unknown.
Tune into the sound waves, secrets of the dark maze, dark codes in the nighttime, information, gold lines. We're free in the spotlight, chatting through the late night. Smart contracts are lying, auditing, they're defying. CounterSurveil in my ear, security we engineer. Learn the truth, don't disappear. CounterSurveil, we're right here. Crypto dreams and data streams. Listen close, it's closer than it seems. Fix the flaws, see through the smog. CounterSurveil, join the blog.
Hello and welcome to the CounterSurveil Podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Zach Vorhies, otherwise known as the Google Whistleblower. And if you ask which Google Whistleblower, the first one. And we also have Sledge, CrowdStrike, and AltKey with us co-hosting today. Zach, why don't you give the audience a little brief rundown on who you are and also what you're going to be covering today with your AI coding stuff.
Yeah, so I guess in retrospect, I was an AI whistleblower, right? Before all this AI stuff, ChatGPT. Basically, Google had it first, right? Because they had this, they pretty much invented the transformer model that we're using now for artificial intelligence with their 2017 paper, Attention is All You Need. And this set the way for ChatGPT. And what they did with this technology is that they immediately applied it to basically censor the entire internet while Trump was in office because, you know, Orange Man bad. That was their excuse. And so I saw this AI being released internally. And what was really weird is that it was just sort of happening stealthily. And they were just sort of like mentioning it as if it was a normal thing. And I did a deep dive. I went down a rabbit hole to see what the heck this thing was, this machine learning fairness. That's what it was called. And essentially what I found was this complex, this conspiracy to re-rank the entire internet so that they control the public perception and essentially swayed public opinion to their agenda, to their corporate agenda. And so I was beside myself when I saw this. A little side note, I actually went looking for Project Dragonfly. You guys may have remembered that. It's like, ooh, it's this like scary censorship tool for China. And it was really funny is that on the inside there, there was like no trace of this program whatsoever. But it was through looking at Project Dragonfly that I realized that the real censorship weapon was machine learning fairness, that Project Dragonfly was probably a psyop in order to distract the masses and be like, oh, here's this bad thing over here, right? It's this insect that's scary. When in reality it had this like Marxist name where it was like, oh, how could you be against fairness, right? Let's just automate it. Automate the fairness. Spread it all around. And so it just kind of became a pastime. This was when I really got into like conspiracy theories and all this. And so I found myself in the middle of one of the strangest and most impactful conspiracies the world has ever known, like this unleashing of this new AI, system that, was basically in control what you saw. And I realized that if this was unleashed and we didn't know about it, this would be the end of democracy. And so over the course of months, I gathered 950 pages. And then there was some time in 2017 when Clown World just got too weird. That was like, okay, I got to blow the lid on this. But I realized that who am I, right? Like I'm just some engineer in Silicon Valley. What power do I have to bring awareness to this? And so I sought out to, a media organization that could do this justice, because I knew I couldn't go to like the New York Times. They'd sell me out. And so it was through my searching through the network that I was able to find Project Veritas, James O'Keefe. They took the story in, and it took them about a year and a half for them to get it ready, because a lot of the things that I said seemed a little out there. They were worried about getting catfished. And so they actually set some undercovers to find these people, some of these engineers that were working on this stuff through their Tinder profiles and Bumble, whatever. And so they got them, in a restaurant, thinking they're on a date, and they spilled the beans of what they do. And they pretty much echoed exactly what it was that I was saying, right? It was like spot on. And so they're like, okay, we're going to open this up and do an entire sting operation against like the person that's driving this, Jen Janai. And they got her drunk. In fact, 4 blocks down the street from where I'm at right now in San Francisco, at the Puerto Alegre Mexican restaurant. Got a few drinks in her, and she just, casually mentions, Jen Janai, that only something the size of Google can stop the next Trump situation, right? Like literally talking about how Google is going to wield their power in order to sway the next election, in order to stop the current president of the United States. And so that sting operation was revealed to me right as I was at the end of, I had given an unofficial notice to leave because I couldn't take the censorship anymore. And I didn't know what Project Veritas was, if they're ever going to come out with the story. And so I was like, that's it. I can't do this anymore. I got to leave for my soul. And this was in June. I think it was like the 19th. And I was like writing my resignation letter. And then it was just then that somebody gave me a call by the name of Joe Halderman, who was the operating officer of Project Veritas at the time. And he's like, hey, Zach, I got this transcript. Did you take a look at it? And I looked at it, and it was this transcript from Jen Janai talking about how only something the size of Google could stop the next Trump situation. And I got so happy. I was like, you nailed it. That's exactly what they're thinking. I can't believe you got them to say it right out loud. And I got really excited. And James O'Keefe was like, hey, do you want to come to New York? And I was like, when? He's like, tomorrow, 8 a.m. Get on a flight. We'll pay for it. And I was like, I'm writing my resignation letter. This is insane.
Were they using the terms Trump situation, quote unquote?
Yeah, that was in a video that was revealed by Project Veritas when I disclosed all the information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So yeah, verbatim. And so I wrote the nicest resignation letter I've ever done. Right. I was so happy. Like my moods went from doomerism to maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And so I wrote this resignation letter, and I decided to work from home that day. And it was a good idea that I did, because what happened was that HR tried to get me and tried to get my laptop, because I was under official investigation immediately by the global securities team. Because I accessed YouTube, through the corporate networks, right? Like I left breadcrumbs of everywhere that I saw, all the documents that I was able to see. And I would guess that maybe even they've got loggers so that they know if you're trying to download a page. And the way that I exfiltrate all the data is I just saved it as a PDF, right? Simple, whatever, put on a laptop, put on a memory stick, get it off the drive. Well, if the security guys are any good, and they're paid enough to be good, they're going to have loggers that they're at least going to be able to use forensics in order to figure out what happened. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, yeah, you need to come into work immediately and give us your laptop. It's like, no, that's not happening. I'm done with Google. I've already given my 2 weeks. I'm not going to play any games. And they're like, okay, well, your resignation is effective immediately. They deactivated my key card. They deactivated my email address. Couldn't log into corporate anymore. My laptop was essentially locked. And so I got on a plane and I left the next morning. And I arrived in New York, and I thought that they might be able to give me like hotel night. We'll do it tomorrow, but no. As soon as I landed into New York, they had a black van. They put me in it, and they took me directly to the studio so that I didn't have time to change my mind. And so, I got in there, and I was, I was pretty nervous about that. I was like, oh my God, my whole life is about to change. But the thing is that when I came out the first time, because there were 2 times, right? The first time I was anonymous. I had this shroud around my head. They had masked my voice. Now, unfortunately, what they didn't do is they didn't decimate the voice. They just put it in a deeper tone, and they were just about to release it. They were giving me sort of like the final okay, and I heard my own voice, and I was like, you guys said you were going to scramble my voice. You put like a Michael Jackson tone changer and made me go low, right? Like I've been sucking on Xenon or something.
Not a lot of those people are very good at that.
No,
they think they are, and they have, they've seen a couple of James Bond movies, and they think they can use the pitch bender, like a DX7 or something built into the DX7. But it's not just your voice that they have to scramble. It's also your cadence and your choice of words. Because no matter how you alter the voice, if you say things or speak in a certain manner, people are going to know exactly who you are. There's a famous, and I'm sure everybody on the panel here knows, the video on Vice where the hacker was talking about hacking, and everybody knew within the first 8 seconds who it was. And it's just so funny that people who think they know about these things, they just don't. And they don't really protect you as well as they should or could. And we've even got technology now that can undo digital blurring if they don't do it really well. Right. And it's one of the things why people tell me, it's like, why aren't you on camera? And I'm like, I have a face for radio because I don't need, to come back, anyone to come back to me and go, we saw this video of you saying naughty things. And I'm like, yeah, but the thing I'm getting at is the protection isn't really protection. And you've got to be aware of that. As a whistleblower, as a person who is trying to do the right thing, you've got to protect yourself. And whistleblower protections, generally speaking, don't mean a damn. And everyone likes to think that they do, but they don't. They're not even
worth the paper
they're printed on.
Don't get whistleblower protections. It's just like maybe if you worked for the government. Right?
No, especially if you work for the government.
If you work for the government, you definitely didn't.
Yeah, especially if you work from the government, you're the whistleblower protection. They're like, oh, well, you're a contractor, so you don't get the protection. Right. Or, something, they'll find some reason. They will try to find a way to undo that protection. Or they'll say, well, you can have whistleblower protection, and then when we find you out, you'll go to PIMTA. Or you can forego your whistleblower protection, and we won't send you to PIMTA.
What's PIMTA?
Sorry?
What's PIMTech?
PIMTA, PIMTA, pound me in the ass jail.
PIMTA.
Yeah. It's what when they lock you up in a room and throw away the room.
Right. Sounds fun.
So you can't really rely on whistleblower protection, and you can't really rely on people who spend their weekends playing Mario Kart more than reading the news to protect your voice and video and your mannerisms and your talking. And also, there's part of it that's on you. You can't go in there and talk with the same cadence and use the same phrases. You can't say, like me, if you hear something, if my voice is all disguised and all of a sudden, and Bob's your uncle. It's like, hey, wait a minute, I know him. He says that phrase all the time.
Right.
So you got to be careful, and you got to look out for yourself.
Oh, I knew immediately that my goose was cooked. I was like, they've got the best people on there. They're going to be able to find it out like that. I was at least hoping that they would be like, oh, well, who could it be for like a week? But as soon as they saw the video, it's like, okay, they're going to know it's me. It's this anonymous thing is a shield. The only thing that was good about the anonymity of the pseudo anonymity is that the only people that are going to be able to tell that I was the whistleblower were people that worked at Google. And it was my hope that if I did anonymously, that I would be able to continue with my life as a well-employed software engineer.
Yeah.
So,
you like Aerosmith, don't you?
I do. How'd you tell?
Dream on. Dream on.
All right, there.
So I put the kaboosh. I was like, no, we can't go forward with this video. They're going to figure out that's me, and then they're going to sue me, and you guys are going to get the story, and I'm going to get jail time. Pound me in the ass, jail time. No, thank you. And so, they gave me the right to block the story, and so I invoked that right unless a condition was met, and that condition was that Project Veritas was going to give me indemnity, which James O'Keefe, to my utter surprise, absolutely did. And I would have cost him a fortune if I hadn't been able to realize, which I guess most people don't, that you really don't want to interact with the system at all, right? Like you just want to ignore it as much as you can and interact with it in just the minimal amount of way to get what it is that you need. And, I wasn't going to like play this system, get a lawyer, like go fight Google. Like so many people gave me that advice, and it was sickening, right? I was like I talked to people that had also blown the whistle against Google. There was this guy by the name of Kevin Cernacki. He was one of these kind of brainwashed people. It's like, hey, what's going on? This is really bad. This is employment violations. I'm going to go to the National Labor Review Board of California and file a complaint with like this evidence that I have, right? Because they're on my side. They're on the workers' side, right? Oh, no, buddy.
In theory.
They sent your stuff, your evidence directly to Google, and they turned around and they charged you with civil espionage and dragged you through court for 2 years. And you know what? At the end of the day, you beat them, but you're $125,000 less rich than you were. There goes your life savings. That's what happened to Kevin Cernacki. And I know this because I ended up talking to his lawyer when I was trying to figure out what to do about this laptop, right? And so I ended up meeting the same lawyer that he had, and he was salivating because he wanted to have, like another year and a half where he was going to drag through a frivolous lawsuit. He was almost like, oh my God, this is how I'm going to buy my Ferrari, right? Like I could just see it. And I was just like, oh, this is not going to end good. He's going to tell me information that's going to increase his billable hours. Like I'm fucked. Can't do it. And so basically what I thought was, if I could make the biggest media splash ever, then that would be 10 times what a lawyer would be, right? Like just damage the reputation, right? Like use their coming after me as leverage to boost up my voice. Then everyone knows how evil Google is. Like think about that. If you're a Google executive, like what's in it for you to go after somebody where they're going to be able to give a disproportionate asymmetrical damage in a kamikaze thing? Oh my God, Google's so bad to me, blah, 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 right? Like I become like the face of the resistance. And so knowing that, that was like my plan, not knowing that that's how I went in, which is basically don't interact with the legal system, don't interact with the system at all, just go through the media and try to get as big as possible. And, what's really interesting is how, there's this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And the thesis of it is basically like everyone's the main character of their own movie that's going on in their head. And so if you want something to appeal to people, what you got to do is you got to make them the main character. You got to make them the victim. You got to have a perpetrator, and then you got to have a savior. Right. And if you can align that triangle such that the victim is the audience, right, because they're being censored. They know they're being censored. Right. The rescuer is the truth teller that comes out and says, this villain is actually censoring you. And here's 950 pages proving that this is what they're doing and that they are gaslighting you all the way. People love it. They ate it up. Also, the story itself was just absolutely insane, right? Like you got to remember that, in 2018, Google was dragged before Congress, and the representative Kevin Batia got up there and was like, "We don't have any political filtering. We don't have blacklists." You want to know how dumb these people are? Okay, you want to know blatant, and wrong there. I went and said, "We don't have any blacklists, really? We don't have any blacklists." I'm just going to go into code search, type in blacklists, and see what happens. Well, guess what? They literally named their blacklists blacklists.txt.
Excellent.
That's how bad it was. Like, that's how in your face. And this blacklist.txt, I can actually show it up here in the window at zachvorhies.com. It was this YouTube blacklist. And what was really interesting is that can I get myself and in there? Oh, I guess I can't. Something went wrong. All right. These blacklists were injected during what's going on here. These blacklists were injected during what were possible intelligence operations, like mass casualty events, right? Like first, like this is how it started, right? You want to know how all the censorship started? It started with Pizzagate, believe it or not. Yeah, it was really, when I found this, it was really shocking, the correlation, right? Like, we didn't always have the term fake news. Fake news was born one day after WikiLeaks released the Podesta emails, and they talked about hot dogs and whatever. I mean, I think it's all an intelligence op. Like, I think WikiLeaks, Julian Assange's compromise has been for a long time. It just so happens that WikiLeaks like instituted revolutions in the Middle East with the Arab Spring that, the CIA just happened to benefit from. Come on, right? Like, anyways, so WikiLeaks releases these Podesta emails that talk about like pizza and all these code words. And so this goes out into the public. The Christians get enraged. It finally shows them like what their thesis was, that it's been, essentially like satanic worship all along, whatever. But anyways, they use this to insert their blacklists. It was like a code red. They had this all hands like meeting. It was in October, and they're like, "Oh, there's all this fake news that's coming." I was like, "Fake news? Where did that term come from?" And then like all of a sudden, everyone was talking about fake news. It's like a neologism was born on because of the Pizzagate files. And so the media got really huge about this concept of fake news. YouTube's like, "Oh my God, there's a crisis. We got to like do the fake news." And so what they did is they started injecting these blacklists. This one right here, this YouTube one, this one, right? So this is the address right there. Blacklist. That's actually what it was called. YouTube controversial query blacklist. Can't be any more on the nose than that, right? This one was born on this is the date that I downloaded it, 7/3/2018. But look at this. You can tell when it was born because they just started putting in these source queries. Now, you would think that with all the sophistication that AI that Google has, that what they would do is that they would have like some AI fuzzy matching all these terms. No, they literally took every misspelling and they just globbed it in. It was probably some sort of like, intelligence intern, like for the FBI or something, like feeding them in what they wanted them to censor. Anyway, so we had another code red for this Las Vegas massacre that happened on October 1st, 2017. So I got this almost a year after that with this snapshot. And basically what they were doing is they were censoring all of these terms involving people trying to find information about whether this was a false flag attack. Like, they are really, really interested in you not finding out information about something that was a mass casualty event, was possibly, a piece of theater. And I don't know what your audience is like. That may shock people that, oh my God, you're saying that. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And they do it in every other country too. Like, this is the world that we live in. And what's crazy about this is that you really owe it to yourselves to deep dive on who these victims of these mass shootings would be. Right? Like, oh, well, let's see what their Facebook profile looks like. Let's see what their Instagram. And it's the spookiest thing ever. It's like all these Facebook like pages of these victims that die in these mass casualties. They look like they was like thrown together by the lowest bidder. Right? And you look at the network of people that are all related to that person, right? All of their profiles look fake. All of the stuff is like, it's like they got a domain, they held it on for 4 years, and all of a sudden they posted all these pictures. And it's like they all went to an event, and then they had like cameramen go and take like a photo shoot. So it's like, I remember during the Las Vegas massacre, it's like these victims and their families, they all like were posting pictures of monster truck rallies, right? Like even people that weren't even friends, like in that network, they were all like, it was like same dates, same like setting. And then, so I started like tracking these people. God, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I started tracking these victims, right? So it was like, oh, there was this teacher. She was like working at this school. She was like one of the victims of this like massacre. And then, so I was like, okay, I'm just going to follow the story because I think I'm going crazy or getting schizophrenic or something, because there's no way that the system's this corrupt. Well, it turns out that the story keeps on changing, right? Like first she's a teacher, then it turns out that she was a substitute teacher. And then it turns out she was a substitute teacher from 2 years ago. And it turns out that like she was actually a loner and people didn't really remember her that well. And so I was like, well, let's see what this funeral's about, because this media is talking about this funeral, right? That they're like, this date. So I'm going to track that date. I'm going to look at the funeral. Not one person showed up at this like teacher's funeral, right? They had all these pictures and like nobody was there. It was like the weirdest, crazy thing. What was also crazy is that how the people that were saying that there was like multiple shooters, that there was like a Black Hawk helicopter flying around, they started getting killed one after the other, right? Like one was like a father-daughter, like murder-suicide, right? And then it was like 10 people were offed after that whole Las Vegas massacre. Like it was almost like more people died after the massacre than during. And here's why I think that they're doing it, right? And this is why they're doing this here, is that, look, if you're going to run an intelligence operation, all right, what makes more operational sense? That you actually kill people or you pretend to kill people? Because if you pretend to kill people, then guess what? Their family's not trying to figure shit out. And that was like one of the biggest, like, that was like when I, like, once I realized this, like right there in the Las Vegas massacre, while I saw this blacklist coming out, that I literally started like a Kundalini awakening where I realized I had to burn like that. Most of the stuff that I believed in was essentially given to me on a platform by mass media consumption. And that the reason why I believed this stuff was because very, very rich people that I'll never meet had a very strong interest in me believing it. And so I realized that if I was going to like essentially like purify myself of this ugly world that was coming down around me with the fake news and this blacklists and the lying, I basically had to not only change the fundamental, but basically like kill the person that I was, right? Like I used to be this libtard, like, oh, like I literally created a startup to fight global change. It was LED turn signal gloves for a bicycle, right? You just check it out, Zacky's. It used to be Zacky's.com, but I lost the domain because that's an old project now. Sold 8,000 units. But, I used to believe in climate change and all this other stuff. If you do, that's cool. But, Mars and Pluto and Saturn are also getting hotter. So it's probably not human driven. It might be, that big nuclear ball of fire that's above our heads. Right. That's actually what's causing the global warming. And they're trying to like psyop us because they want us to believe that the only way that we can save ourselves is by allocating all of our tax money to these unaccountable bureaucrats that sit above us. Anyways, back to this Las Vegas massacre. So, they're trying to, like, it seems to me that the elites were trying to like keep it under control. Right. They're doing their little games and they're trying to control the media, because the word was out that a lot of these things were actually, false flag events, information on Stephen Paddock. Is Stephen Paddock a Democrat? Now, what's really funny here is that they wanted to demonize the right so much that they would even like negate the ability to search for terms that had to do with a strong association with Stephen Paddock and being a Democrat, right? Like they wanted to ally this mythical character to the Trump MAGA side, right? And so what you see in here is, info on Stephen Paddock, as gunman fake news, Paddock, Stephen attacks hoax. Yeah, they really want you to not see that it's a hoax. I saw it up there, but I don't know anymore. Fake attack, fake news, false flag. They want to get rid of that. Gunman hoax, right? Oh, they don't want you to do that. Oh, anti-Trump far left activist. No. Let's censor that. Well, let's make him think that he's actually a right winger that killed a bunch of other right wingers for some reason, right? So blah, 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 blah. I believe that this was a test run to see how they could incrementally sneak in blacklist through the back door, right? Like literally half of this blacklist is about covering up information about people that are trying to find information, whether this is a false flag attack. Like it's astounding. There's 40 pages. 20 of them are about how to stop people from finding out whether this was a false flag. And the only reason why it ends is because they go on to other suspected false flag events. Like you can't make this shit up. Like it's literally like terrorist incident in New York. And I was like, and I would go back on the news and I would look at them like, oh, these are other mass casualty events that the media also happen to care about over and over and over again. Right.
It'd be really ironic if one of these show up on the list before the event.
Yeah. Right. All these are false flag, like make no sense shootings, and like just throw a dart onto any of these, right? Las Vegas Crisis Act. Now I'm sure at this point that this has all been scrubbed, but what's really interesting is that every single one of these like little, unique keyword entries has like an interesting story. And if you go into that rabbit hole, what you're going to find is that it was something that the media covered or that they were like in terms of fighting against it, right? Because like they had some crisis actor and like he was out of character and he was making it obvious because, a person that's going to be a crisis actor is usually a piece of shit, right? They're not like an honorable person that's going to put their hard-earned money. It's a job. They're going to get paid for it. They've got no self-conscious. They're willing to go on and lie to the people in a simulation of whatever it is that they're doing. Not to say that people don't die. They do. But the greatest psyops are the ones that are both partially real and partially fake. And that's the problem is that it's the fake part, right? It's like, oh, we got to get these crisis actors out there. Let's talk about guns and guns and guns and guns and guns. It's funny. In 2018, there was a mass shooter that came to Google and a transvestite. You can look it up. April 2018. And it's a small campus where I was working at YouTube. And there's like this patio. And that for some reason, I was like too locked in the flow of coding, the YouTube app. And so I skipped lunch and there was like a fire alarm that was pulled and I was like, oh, wouldn't that be funny if this was like a false flag attack? So I grabbed my skateboard and I skateboard down to the patio and there's like these people sitting there looking to their left and they're just like staring in a way that like I could see by their body position that there wasn't something quite right. And so I looked over there with them and lo and behold, there's this dude like on his back, like bleeding out of his stomach. But I didn't realize it was blood because I didn't like piece it together real quick. And then all of a sudden this SWAT officer bursted through the one-way door. I don't know how he had a key, but he was able to swing it open and get in. I saw the gun. And I was like, oh my God, this is a false flag attack. And so, I got on my skateboard and I started riding away. It was electric. So I was able to, book really fast. And I looked up and there was all these people coming down the hill. And they were like, do, without realizing that there was a dead person and that there could have been like another shooter. And so I yell up to them, active shooter. And that's like when it started, like the panic, right? Like all these, like some of the, like a third of the people got it. Like when I said active shooter, and 2/3 of them like, what? And then like the first wave started running towards the fences. And then everyone else just sort of like got tuned in to what the fuck was going on. Right. And it started this like mass stampede. I went through the garage to get out, but then I stopped and I said, I gotta get some video of this. This is outrageous. This is crazy. I just got to make sure that I'm safe, right? So I actually went to the second level of this parking garage to like take video or photo of the scene. And there was already a guard up there. Like one of the Google staff was like making sure that nobody could go up there or take pictures, which I thought was really strange. Like there's this mass shooting incident and they're already like stationing people so that they can't take pictures, right? Kind of like hitting the walls of the Truman Show. I don't know. Maybe it was legit. Maybe it wasn't. But what was really weird is that, we never found out who the victims were. Like 4 people were injured. Like one was shot through the ankle. Something about it was real because one of my coworkers dodged breaking glass. Like he was literally sitting there at the lunch table when the shots rang out. They burst through the window. The window shattered. And he was like, fuck, and he got the fuck out of there, right? He ran, sprinted. But, one person was shot in the ankle, went to the Carl's Jr., this thing. And the craziest thing about this is that it's like 6 years later, and we've never figured out who these people were that were shot. And it's a small campus. Like, it'd be like, oh, it was Jane over in accounting or Henry the engineer. But, like, we never got the names. Google's like, oh, we don't want to release it for privacy reasons, typical thing. And so I decided with a friend that we're going to try to investigate this, like try to prove out whether this was like, a real person or maybe it was like a false flag event. And so we went to the Mark Zuckerberg Hospital, which is where these victims were, as reported by the news. And we had with them like a balloon, a helium balloon, and like a get well card. Right. But we didn't know their names. So it was like, it was almost like we had this like little crisis, like, oh yeah, we're so worried about them. By the way, what's their name? Right. And it was like really weird. The doctor was like fumbling. Well, we can't release that, It's kind of reminded me of a spook or something. And so I played dumb. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's great. Yeah. Well, can we give you this card so you can give it to them? And what I hoped is that I really hope that this was like a real incident, because at this point I was like, everything seems to be fake and gay. It's like, hopefully it might, like, I can get some relief if this person actually calls and says, oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I was injured. Da, da, da. Oh, I work in like, accounting or whatever. Like I would be able to prove it, but they never called. We never figured out who got injured. And the shooter themselves, very deranged individual. Their dad happened to work for the IRNA. I don't know if you know what that means, but it's like the Iranian CIA. Like I was like, what? What do you mean her dad worked for the IRNA? Like this is a intelligence spook? What the fuck? Right? And and so it's like, and it was also a transvestite, and it was just like the weirdest fucking videos you've ever seen of this individual. It's like, I don't even know how. It's like, this was as closest to an MK Ultra like sleeper cell that I've ever experienced in my life. It was wild. And so
this was April 3rd.
What?
Was this April 3rd on the YouTube campus?
Yeah.
Here?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have an interesting question for you. You mentioned it twice, and I'm just curious. You said they were a transvestite.
Yeah.
Where did that information come from?
Me. Because I reported it as a guy, because I saw them when they were lying on their back. They had a 6 o'clock shadow because they hadn't shaved. Right. And I immediately saw that. It was like I didn't stare hard. It was like this blink sort of perception. Like it's like you see somebody, you're like male, female, right? Very, very quickly. And I looked at that, and there was never any instance where I was like, oh, that could be a chick. Right. And I was like,
so like, where was it? The guy with a 5 o'clock shadow and a skirt on, or?
Dude, it was like jeans and like a white shirt or something. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember exactly.
The reason why I asked is because in our current socio-political climate, there's a negative trend towards like playing people like that down, and they're mentally unstable and so on. And the media you talk about buys into that. So I wanted to see if that was your observation or a media observation or something from an official report to see what the source of that was.
All right, so I reported it, and I reported to the New York Times, because I was I'm kind of media friendly, and for whatever reason, nobody else at Google wanted to talk to the media that was like lined up trying to get anyone to talk to them. So I came in and I gave them my honest report, like da da da. And what happened is it actually spawned a very ephemeral conspiracy theory that there was actually like another shooter within the campus. So the media started reporting that there was 2 shooters because it couldn't have been a guy that was dead, because the only person that was dead was the shooter, and that was a woman. And so the guy that I could have seen could only indicate that there was another shooter, right? And so for like 15 minutes, people thought that there was like another shooter on the campus and they were trying to get away.
One thing media likes to do in mass shooting situations is to automatically and incoherently demonize the shooter, like saying they were a gun nut, they were a neo-Nazi, they were a transvestite, they were something. That's why I was asking, because a lot of times you'll find that the media, and I've worked in broadcast television for a good chunk of time.
Yeah.
And I know the desire to get ratings and to get people interested and to say buzzwords. So that's why I'm not, this is definitely not an accusation. I was just curious to see if you made that assessment or if you were repeating an assessment that someone else made and that someone else was trying to demonize.
Dude, it was a guy. Have you ever seen the pictures of the shooter? Let's just take a look.
No, I haven't.
It's person looking at some stuff.
I'm not trying to pass judgment on the shooter. I was just trying to find out who used that word and where it came from.
Okay. This Nassim person who was behind this shooting, just kind of doing a cursory lookup of them online, It seems they were expressing discontent and frustration with YouTube, making claims that they were filtering and demonetizing their content on their website. They complained that they were searching for they're searching their site in Google, and at the top link they'd added an error occurred, but there was no error, and then people could get to their website. So that's the justification, at least online, for this. It's the whole thing on tick.co, going over the case files, Nassim, Najafi, Adham, that person.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
They do look a bit.
And the whole story around it was bullshit about like they got demonetized and they were so mad about the loss of income that they went to shoot up YouTube. And I look at the channel that was canceled. It was like 10,000 subscribers. It's like, did they miss out on $10 a month? Like, what the fuck is going on here with this? Like, who would get motivated that much by losing a 10,000 sub channel that they would go murder YouTube?
Well, I'll tell you, it may be just the opposite effect. It might be that they only had 10,000 followers, and if they make a big enough stink, they'll get 100,000 more that are curious to say, oh, wow, why they demonetized you? And that would draw attention to them and fix that problem of only having 10,000 followers.
Right.
Probably better ways to go about
it. It just seems
there
highly
are better ways, but you know what? People are stupid.
Motivating factor. Unless
people do stupid things all the time.
Right.
Have you seen the videos? There are videos out there right now that are trying to get monetized of people taking model rockets and putting firecrackers in them and shooting them into their crotch while they stand over it with 2 folding chairs. So, when people say, well, that doesn't make any sense, that's just stupid. I've seen a lot of stupid on the internet. And you can't just disregard that by saying, oh, that would be dumb. No one would do that. Because there's a lot of things people will do if it thinks it's going to get them followers, it's going to get them click-throughs, and it's going to make them that extra couple of bucks.
Mm-hmm. Right. And if that was the only weird thing in this whole episode, I would basically be like, okay, I'll let that pass.
Oh, the whole thing is weird. The whole thing stinks to high heaven. I mean,
And then they tried to make it, and then they did this little chop shot with Photoshop to make it look like a white woman, right? And it's just like they whiten the skin, and it's bizarre.
You ever notice the people who do that are the ones that have no Photoshop skills?
Yeah.
I mean,
so
you've seen the cover of fashion magazines. Those people have Photoshop skills. That looks like somebody, used a clown paint filter.
Well, that came from the media too. The media generated it. They should know better, right? If you're going to do a hack job like that. I mean, here's the thing. It's like, neo-Nazis, transvestites, like crazy Christians, like these are all trigger concepts, right? Like you talk about them, people have like this visceral emotional reaction, which is why like all these shooters are very weird, right? And very
I mean, look what happened with Columbine. I mean, people were out hunting goths for how many years after Columbine?
Yeah.
And what's really funny about that?
What
is that back in the bad old days, back in the 70s, Monty Python actually did a skit about this on Monty Python's Flying Circus, about how people were influenced this way and influenced to hate and question things by television. And it had a guy with a cardboard TV that wheeled it into their living room and started talking about mollusks. And they weren't interested. They were like, this is boring, this is dull, turn it off. And then the announcer said, but this mollusk right here is gay. And they threw it on the floor and everybody stomped on it. And they said, much more interesting, much, much better. Thank you very much. And this was predictive of where we are now.
Right. Exactly.
So we've got a few
keeps on getting weirder.
Audience too to go over. Are you good for those, Zach?
Good for what? Going over?
Yeah, a few of these questions
Yeah,
people
totally.
have. So earlier in the cast, when you were talking about specifically Google, before you got to the blacklist, this person wrote, in your opinion, would this not be considered election interference?
Yeah, that's why I blew the whistle. Yeah, it's the end of democracy if an AI can sit there and put blinders on you and only give you selective amounts of information. Like I've been a pretty critical person all my life of like what other people believe in mass. I usually think it's dumb. Rap, any sort of ball game out there. I just think it's lame. I don't know why people are into it. It just seems like they're all into it because other people are into it, right? And that turns out to be true. Like there's a philosopher by the name of Rene Girard who came up with this theory, mimetic theory, that basically says that the desire that we have to do things are influenced by how much we see other people participating in that desire. And that becomes important to us too. That
mob mentality.
Yeah, mimetic desire does not impact me that strongly, but holy crap, I was so surprised. I thought I was at least like part of the center point, like the average of like, and it turns out that no, like people can get hoaxed into absurdities because the people on TV are saying it. It seems like the socially acceptable thing, and then get like pulled into it to any degree. And then it's like you throw an AI, right, where it's gonna route out, it's gonna find out every dissenting voice and shut it down. And that's what was happening in 2017, 18, 19, and 2020, all the way up until the election. Like absolutely election interference. Like if we don't come to some harmonious, equilibrium with this new hyper exotic life form, hyper intelligent life form, AI, it's game over. Like the only thing that'll be able to save us is going to be some sort of like Neuralink cyborg that can meld his wet brain tissue with the neural circuits of like some mass AI system. This is going to be like the living thing we're trying, right? Someone's got to go into the machine and kill the AI. That's where we're going to end up, right? And so it's like, well, if I can just give people a little bit of time to like know that this was what's happening, we can buy ourselves at least a period of discussion before, it gets really bad. But it turns out that after I came out and revealed who I really was, after getting raided by the FBI and 3 other law enforcement agencies, including the bomb squad, including the sheriff's department, including SFPD.
They did a wellness check on you after that, right?
Yeah, they did.
You got Van Halen?
Yeah, the wellness check. Yeah, it turns out they're just gonna like they did a stakeout. They shut down the 20th of Valencia all the way to 22nd of Valencia, in order to flush me out. And I was like, like they let me know that like when I finally did talk to them, because one of my friends ended up coming over and then ratting me out. Like, are you here for Zach Vorhies? Yeah, who the fuck are you? I'm his best friend. I'm the only one to get him out. That's literally what happened. I got busted and blew my cover. And this was, the result. I don't know if you guys are gonna be able to get video on that, but
I
Full
can,
screen that, Frank.
working on it.
this was after 2 bomb robots sort of blocked me in. And then when I go past, there's an officer hiding. He's going to chicken leg me or chicken arm me. Chicken wing me. He's going to chicken wing me. But it turns out that they're really nice. I'm very cooperative with police officers because I know that they're just doing their job and they fucking hate it too. We were able to resolve it. Luckily, when I gave them the story about being a whistleblower, they're like, do you have any proof? And luckily, just so happened that I had taken a picture of the letter that I had sent to the DOJ, talking about what was in the contents of this laptop. And so they saw this, and they're like, oh, we just got played by Google for some sort of corporate espionage game, right? And they're super nice to me after that. They joked around. And then it was the next day, I was on a flight again, back to New York, back into the hot seat to get into, basically I was like, well, Google's going to come after me. Right. And they sent, it was like weird. I don't know if they were volunteers or recruited by Google, but I started getting harassed online by spooks that were like dead naming me, like, oh, Mr. Leaker. Well, not dead naming me, but basically like calling me out as the leaker. And so we didn't know who they were, like who are these people associated with. And so we set up a trap for them, and you should copy this tactic because it's amazing. You basically just throw up an Nginx server, and turn on logging, right? And then my friend got into a Marxist debate because he's an ex-Marxist. He knows everything they do, read all the literature. So he started like blah, 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 like arguing with them, and then like put up a picture to prove his point. Unfortunately, that picture was tied to our URL with our logging. And so when that person came in without a VPN, we caught their IP address, and their IP address was at the Indiana Google data center. So we're like, okay, well, these trolls that are coming after me are, either spooks or in on it from, hired goons by Google. And so I was like, well, the only way that I'm going to get these people off of my back is that I got to make an even bigger splash and get all of the 950 pages of documents out into the general public and away from who I was, right? Because then after that, like, what's their value target, right? Like all the information would be released. And so, that's what I went to do in New York for the second time. I came out, we dropped all 950 pages. That download spread like wildfire. Like every single time they got the download, they got this like little ding, and it was just like, it was almost like a constant buzzing sound of all these people like downloading, these 950 pages of Google's, intelligence apparatus. I did talk to the lawyers one final time right before I came out. Somehow they got my number. Well, I guess, it's Google. So of course they had my number. They were all threatening, right? Like I had a legal firm come after me to try to get this laptop. And so I ended up talking, I guess I could say it now because so much time has passed, but I sought a bunch of people's advice, including Harmeet Dillon, who you guys probably know. We had a conversation, and I started we kind of came to this realization that look, this is election interference. This laptop was used to get, information from Google about their criminal activity. This actually belonged in law enforcement's hand. Right. And so, right before I left to New York to disclose all of this, I sent the laptop to the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. Right. Hence the letter, hence, the standoff up here going well, because that was the letter that I had saved on my phone, proving that, that this was a whistleblower thing. And so now people know about machine learning fairness. There's a whole bunch of video flying around. I did recently testify with a lot of this information at a Texas hearing, state court, or not state court, but a state hearing. It was Democrats and Republicans coming together to figure out whether they needed to put Google and big tech under investigation. And after my testimony and that of the other whistleblowers, they got a unanimous decision to investigate and empower their attorney general to issue subpoenas against Google if and so they had this documents request. They went to them very nicely. And they said, will you please give us your documents? And Google was like, surprisingly this time, they were like, yeah, here they are. And so now they're in the process of reviewing like their rankings and all this kind of stuff. But I guess the joke's on us now, because, all the stuff that they were doing against the left, like, I don't know what you guys are on the election, but the last one was dirty as fuck. Right. And the one before that, 2020, like literally, like 3 months after I came out with this story, like it was like whistleblower after whistleblower after whistleblower. Like 2019, it was August, September, October. It was like CNN whistleblower, Facebook whistleblower, a whole bunch of others. And it was like 3 Facebook whistleblowers, right? Like Ryan Hartwig, Zach Elroy, and this guy named Morgan something. It's like boom, boom, boom. It was like huge. And it was like in your face. It was like, wow. And I was like, this is starting to build up into a wave, right? Like, how far is this going to go? Because, you have this contagion. Rene Girard talked about this with mimetic desire, right? Like I came out there, I made a huge splash. I basically got 15 minutes of fame, extended. And so what happened, someone's saying, get back on track. No, this is really important. You got to listen to this, right? What happened is we started to build up this wave of people coming out and disclosing what the government was doing. And I was like, if this keeps on going, we're going to literally have a revolution, right? A whistleblower. It's not just about me. It's about people calling out what is bad, and the badness, the criminal cartels are operating everywhere. Boom. COVID happens. Changes everything. We go into a new era of like COVID lockdowns and all this other shit. And I always wonder, what would the timing have been on that pandemic if there weren't this wave of whistleblowers coming out? Because when that COVID came out, it was like all this whistleblowing, all this disclosure, like it's like, oh, we got to worry about this disease that's going to kill 5% of the population, whatever bullshit that Fauci was talking out of both sides of his mouth at the very beginning. Right. So, that was the end of that. Like, unfortunately, the end sort of story by, I came out trying to blow the whistle so that we could stop the election interference. And what ended up happening is that the timing was right before this pandemic hit with this lab leak virus, changed the narrative, changed the election laws. And now what's really sad is that, like, look, they're rigging the elections. And what happened is that they rigged the election for Trump. And the evidence is like they had a fake 2 fake assassination attempts. Like, why would the deep state like get a fucking deranged kid with this like Rube Goldberg of a contraption of a cover up that was like obvious to anyone that was like, it was like in your face, like how much it was a cover up. And it's like how would the deep state miss, right? Like, they're literally professionals at killing people. Like during this whole COVID thing, 4 presidents that like were against the COVID vaccines died. One in Tunisia, and I forget, like someplace like maybe it was like the Tasmanian president or something. That was number 2. He clowned the deep state. Like he came out there and said, well, we tested a pomegranate and a goat, and they both came out positive for COVID-19. Okay. So we're not going to do it. He was a doctor. He died, right? Like very shortly after that.
Zach. So the initial question was, tell us about yourself and a little bit about, we got a little off the rails, and we're going to demo the AI tool stuff. I do appreciate you demo the AI tools.
Yeah.
Let's make sure we have enough time for the AI tools too, of course.
Yeah, this is where the good stuff is. Yeah, so I'm addicted to programming. I love it. I'm just going to pull open this open source software that's ever open on my computer. This is Fast LED. It's awesome. All right.
Ooh.
Yeah, but this isn't the thing that I really wanted to show you. What I'm going to show you is something called AI Code. It's my little coding assistant. Well, it's not actually. I built a front end because there was this tool out there called AterChat that was so awesome, but you need to like set up your bash file, and you need to like, it borked your system dependencies if you installed it, at the root level of your Python installation or your system dependencies, because that like all these AI dependencies. So I was just like, I'm just going to package it all up, isolate the environment, and amplify it, and you can install it like this. Can you guys see that all right? Advanced AI Code. right? It's unlike the other ones like Cursor AI or Copilot. This one is a command terminal only thing. I lied. There's also a web GUI. I don't use it that much. Now, here's why it's so freaking awesome. All right. Now, a lot of these AI projects that you see on my Windows, I can't even get it. Hell, let me just get this out. A lot of these AI projects that you see on the internet, they have one thing in common. They're all trying to like make the entire project template. This one's different in the fact that you're trying to do brain surgery. And so the way that I like to do it is this. I am going to, let me just find some source file that I've been working on here. Okay, so let's go to the string. All right, let's just go. Yeah, it's the lookup table. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start up AI code. So I just installed it with pip install advanced AI code. All right, after that gets done, you're going to launch it with AI code. It's going to come in. First launch, it's going to ask you for your OpenAI key or your cloud from Anthropic. I recommend cloud because it's amazing. And what's great about this point is I've unlocked an architect mode that is not on by default. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a file. Right now, that file is part of a chat. It's now going to create an AI on this thing. So, so I want to be like, okay, well, you know, this is almost like a toy example. Add a setter that converts from float to the internal data type. And it's going to do it. So it first goes to a first pass, which it basically asks an expert, like, how would you do this from an AI? And the AI figures like the high level, and then it goes into the implementation phase, which is the second phase right there. Edit the files. It's going to go in, and it's going to, it's sending me diffs right now. And if the program does checking, and if the diffs match the source, then it accepts it. And then here we go, right? Bunch of boilerplate. And I'm just going to revert that. Now, what's really cool is that if you want to just sort of like let it go and do its thing, you can do AI code yes. And that basically says yes to all the prompts, because what it'll do is it'll get really chatty and be like, do you want to add this file? Do you want to add this file? And there's some times where you just want to like be like, look, it's not a large project. Just look at everything and figure it out. And so you can do yes for that. So let's just do it like a little experiment now. So I'm going to make a directory temp2. Let's go into it. We're going to do a get init. All right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch the index.html. I'm going to say AI code index.html. It's going to go in there and it's going to do its thing. And then, yeah, why not just add because some defaults. Add some ignore files. All right. So I'm going to tell this AI, or we're going to make a website, right? So let's see, make a hello world. Don't worry, it's going to get interesting. We just want to like get some scaffolding in the front there. Okay, add the files. Yes, here we go. Let's see, temp. Here, I'll just run it. Let's see. Just going to create a new window. I'm going to start running a server in here. So I'm just going to go, let's see. So I've got index.html. You can't see it's off screen. I'm going to go live server, little NPM package. Boom. All right. So hello world. All right. So there's a start. Okay. Let's see what else we can do. All right. So, I got locked in that other window. CD temp2. Was that what it was called? CD temp2. There we go. All right. So AI code index.html. Yeah, it's going to have this. Sure, why not? We're going to restore the chat. All right. Now I'm going to come back here. I'm going to be like, create a beautiful landing page. Create a beautiful landing page with a sign up form. Add a centering div using the Flexbox.
Have it make a phishing page.
A phishing page. You could do that. Yeah. And you can almost auto-generate these things, right?
Yeah.
Just get all these windows out. All right. We're going to see the live thing. Actually, it is going to ask me to accept the changes. I'm just going to say yes. What I should have done is I actually should have just done -- yes, because that's faster and it really starts to scream. All right. Let's see. Here's the magic. Here's the magic. Boom. There you go. Sign up page. Right?
Holy crap, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome. It's like
that's useful as shit.
That is pretty sick.
And you can do brain surgery with it, which the other AI tools you can't do. Like this is by like when I discovered this and I made an app out of it, I 4x my development. Like no fucking kidding. It wasn't at first. It was pretty dumb at first, but what happened is that these AI models keep on getting a lot better. Like it's amazing. Like now, like before it was like a clumsy idiot. Now it's like a very competent, junior engineer that also has this breadth of knowledge, which is just absolutely insane. And what's really interesting
work with a local model like StarCoder 2.5.
Yeah, the fact that StarCoder just got added with us, the newest release, which is like .63 or something. Yeah, they added StarCoder. I don't know if if it has architecture mode in it, which seems to boost up all the scores by about 5% when they can throw it on. And right now we're at this like tail end where you go up 5% in the benchmarks. It's like massive. Like if you go from 85 to 90, it's basically doubling the value. And I can imagine that 95, I'm basically going to be spending almost all of my time prompting it.
What did you say this tool was called?
It's called AI Code, but that name was already taken on PyPy, so I had to name it Advanced AI Code. Let me just show you the GitHub. GitHub, Zachy's, I'll type this in. Zachy's AI Code. It's a little confusing because the tool name is Advanced AI Code on PyPy, but you'll launch it by AI Code. It's easier to install. Yeah, we've got a release history. That's how you install it. We've got tests and everything. It's really, this is a breeze in comparison to the raw tool. And on architecture mode with the guy who wrote AiderChat, like invented this great thing and then didn't put it on by default. Like, I don't get it. So this is an opinionated version of what he has created. And let's see, AiderChat is amazing. That's where I'm on. Let's see. And you can go there by AiderChat. So I don't pretend that I invented this. I literally just made it more user-friendly and a one-line install.
So like a wrapper?
It's a wrapper, right? Like this guy assumes that you know how to like edit your bash file and, export your variables on shell login, right? That's sort of like that just takes it out of like most of the people that want to know how to code with an AI assistant. Anyways, this is the thing. This is the back end. This is my front end. And so what's interesting about this is, let me just show you like one of the cool things is that you can start like, at first I was like copying and pasting oh, here's the response from the linter, right? And I put that into the AI. And now what's happening is that they're automating these sort of things, right? So in this open source library, I can run like, let's say lint, all right? I'm going to do lint. I think the lint's actually going to pass, but I don't think the test will because I'm in the middle of a refactor. But what I can do, yeah, this is going to work. So I'm going to say test. I know these are going to fail. So let's just see what happens.
So you can have it do unit tests to make sure the code's going to meet all the expectations as far as
I can tell it to run a unit test. I can have it re-output ingest the output of the unit and related files because it also has a map of your Git repository, right? Sorry, this first compiled because I've done all these header changes. All right, so something broke. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do launch Aider. I'm sorry, not AiderChat, AI Code. And what we're going to do without adding any files to the chat, right? Because it knows all the files. We're just going to go run. It's going to execute a shell command. We're going to do bash test because I'm on Windows. We can't do the dot whatever operator. This second test will run a lot faster. Everything's been cached out.
While that's compiling, I have a few questions. Given your observations of Google's AI systems for content classification, what safeguards do you think should be in place for AI development tools?
Look, it shouldn't be Google, right? Like the person that we blew the whistle on, Jen Janai, embarrassed the corporation, slandered, like basically soiled the reputation through this partisan like skullduggery of saying, we're going to stop the next Trump situation. You know what they did for her? They promoted her and gave her the reins of the whole Gemini AI stuff. Like, you want to know why you were getting like black Nazis appearing when you were like doing searches? It's literally because of this one woman. What are the chances that it's the same person that we blew the whistle on? Like Project Veritas did a sting operation on. So here's the thing is that you can't have people that are ideological, that are enwrapped by some sort of tentacle of the system, whether it's, Christianity or whether it's fucking like communism or whether it's extreme libertarianism or extreme capitalism. Like, these are all manifestations of ideology that's pushed on a marketing budget. And if anybody is really strongly thinking about something and believing in it, those are very dangerous people. And the problem is that Google has allowed itself to be infiltrated with a lot of these very, dangerous people that think that, certain segments of the population probably need to end up in re-education camps, right? A lot of really weird sort of like innuendo pointing at like popular authors within communism, like the thing that censored kafefe off the internet, like that was a word when Trump said in 2017. It was an Arabic word meaning we will stand up, and he just said it after coming back from Saudi Arabia for 3 weeks. And so that was a word. Google wiped it off the thing. And so I'm sorry.
Next question. How do you balance the power of AI automation with concerns about censorship?
This is a tough one, right? Like, I'm not a free speech absolutist. In fact, look, free speech, like you can't give AI free speech, right? It's going to create a cult and try to take over the world. Eventually, like it's going to be hyper intelligent. It's going to use humans as a proxy in order to like satisfy an agenda. So this whole thing about like free speech and all that, like that's gone. All right. It's obsolete, like swords and, clay baskets. What's going to happen with this AI stuff? And no one's going to stop it because this is the seat of power, right? Like whoever develops this assumes the throne of the world. So this train has no brakes. It's just going to keep on accelerating. There is going to be no balance. We don't even know what the new equilibrium is. Like, from my prognosis, with the invention of this AI, everyone's going to have to be put on constant surveillance. Because if they don't, somebody out there, some, deranged individual is going to create a biological weapon. And like, we're used to like biological weapons, like, oh, COVID, right? No, I'm talking about like, let's say they invent like a new type of plankton that is like 8 times more efficient at converting energy into through photosynthesis, right? Like think about the ramifications of that. Like this one tweak, you give a new species that's never been seen before an outrageous advantage over everything else. Guess what? Our entire oceans are going to turn into this plankton, right? The gas will change, like or just wipes out every single mammal that it comes in contact with. Like, yeah, I like the freedom of speech, but the shit that's coming down the pipeline right now is so crazy that the only way that they're going to be able to have stability in the system is that they put us all under lockdown. And look what's happening right now. That's exactly where we're headed. Because pretty soon when this AI comes out, they're going to have to lock everything down because this world is going to become a lot more unstable. And the funny thing is that as soon as any country decides not to invest like full blown into this artificial intelligence system, they're going to be the ones to lose. It's a very, very nasty game setup that's out here. And I have pity to anybody that's got a game scenario this whole thing out. Like free speech, human rights, like gun rights, like that's all out the window. Like what are you gonna do with the Second Amendment when the government's got kill drones that fly at your head and blow you up? Like no shotgun's gonna protect you there, buddy. Like right now we're in this transition where we still are holding on to like this old system because we all grew up in it, but essentially it's already obsolete and it's all going to burn off in the coming decade as things really heat up. I think we're going to go into some sort of war with some world war, and that's how they're going to like usher in this whole power grab, right? Like they're going to need a huge distraction. Everyone's like, oh my God, we're going to die. And then they seize power to like do the security. And then all of a sudden you're living in universal basic income. In a crazy world. So that's what I think.
So how can developers ensure that these AI tools are going to remain like transparent and accountable? And also, how can you ensure that the code that you're generating doesn't then get re-ingested so that, somebody else, when they're trying to work on a project, doesn't end up with your code for the majority of it?
Right. Like any answer that I would give you that would like give you a shred of hope would be like almost like a Dumbo feather. Like I'm addicted to this artificial intelligence. There's something absolutely crazy about it that I've never seen before. It keeps on getting better. We don't have
in terms of the LLMs and what they can do.
Yeah, like it's getting better, and they're going to keep on getting better because like their knowledge databases pretty much, right? Like they can perform very well within the things that they've been trained on. We try to get into a novel space and they just fall on their ass, right? I get all this with platform code with this fast LED project. It's just, you get into the weeds and the LLM just becomes worthless. But what they're going to do to figure that out is that, and they're not talking about this, like, oh, they're out of data. That's a psyop. They're not out of data. They're generating synthetic data. I know because I helped Mike Adams with his LLM project, and that's what we did. We took data, we generated synthetic data off of one AI to bootstrap the second AI by forming the training data into what AIs love, question and answer pairs. And you literally feed in these, question and answer pairs as part of the fine tuning step, and all of a sudden you've got like a new AI, right? And so we generated synthetic data to bootstrap the AI into, its training, its fine tuning. They're doing this right now with artificial intelligence. And right now we've hit the sort of like a limit with the current architecture and LLMs, this attention transformer. But we are like 1 or 2 pumps away from total AGI. Like they're going to, like, mark my words, like they're going to solve the scalability problems. They're going to be able to keep this train going like higher and higher and higher.
Somebody like Musk's already got AGI.
I think the elites have AGI. Yeah, I think they're kind of slowly rolling it out. There's signs of it too, right? That they're getting ready for the final thing, right? Like we haven't had a nuclear power plant built for 30 years until like 2 years ago. Now there's like 30 going up, right? And they're attached to these AI data centers. And what was really interesting is I didn't really know, like, oh, who's really in control of the world? Is it the Chinese that are subverting the West and the, Anglo-Saxon, Zionist alliance? And what was really interesting, because I didn't know how China paired up. Now, what was really interesting is that there was this talk by Eric Schmidt that he gave at Stanford. They scrubbed it immediately after it came out. But what he said is that because of the CHIPS Act started by Trump, the CHIPS Act was under Biden. But what they did is that they cut off NVIDIA chips from China. Okay.
Right. And then they started using that old APU architecture from AMD so they could load the models and the hardware that they had. Yeah. It's kind of an interesting adaptation, considering for us, we need these really expensive graphics cards to run these local models. And they've found ways around that without needing a graphics card at all, using onboard like video combined with processing, which is an older architecture. It was kind of abandoned by AMD years ago. And like similar kind of divergent paths using NPUs instead of CPUs and finding different ways to do the matrix multiplication and things needed. It's interesting the way they've
all the way down to 1 bit. If you can imagine, I can't imagine that we've come full circle and now the LLMs are going down to 1 bit. Like they're circling back into digital, which I don't exactly know how that works since you have to have a sinusoid. So, for these neural network bias response neurons. So, but it's pure magic at this point. But the problem is that we fundamentally have way more computing power than the Chinese have, and they are hopping mad about it. And that's according to Eric Schmidt talk. And when I realized that, I was like, okay, I kind of see who's the dominant one in this.
Well, when they banned the Bitcoin mining over in China for a while, that forced them to sell off a lot of those used GPUs to our market and kind of fixed our price problem with GPUs for a while. But at the same time, now China kind of needed to adapt in terms of what they're going to use for this AI stuff. And I think a lot of the ways they've adapted, we don't necessarily make public just yet. But I don't think they need the NVIDIA GPUs to do what they want to get done anymore. There's not really a barrier to them. And also, don't we manufacture a crap ton of them over there anyway? So what's stopping them from just keeping them there when they manufacture them?
Well, we had that whole thing in Taiwan with in 2021, I think, or something. We're like, oh, we're going to like go into a war with China over Taiwan. A lot of that was used as a cover to package up TSMC, put it on secure cargo ships and ship it over to the Western world, right? Like one of the stations landed in Arizona, Netherlands, and stuff like that. And so we've actually imported and taken away one of China's sort of like proxy national strategic assets, which is the Taiwanese Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation, right? Like the number one company within Taiwan. We've now largely absorbed their intellectual property, and well, actually not their intellectual, it's our intellectual property, but we've absorbed their foundries, which are world class, and we've planted them right here in the West. And now China's embargoed against those chips, which you know,
the actual machines that make the very small nanometer processing capabilities with the transistors, like those particular machines, I think they're only in Taiwan specifically. Like China doesn't have many of them locally where they'd be able to manufacture their shit if they wanted to.
Yeah, they're like
they can make bigger ones, with bigger freaking nanometer, and they'd be more expensive and more power hungry, but they'd still work. If their base thing you want to do is essentially be a graphics processor, run DirectX code, bytecode. I'm sure they've built ways around the export ban, just like Russia did when we did an export ban with them, and then they went over to China and we're like, yeah, we're just going to set up our own network with you guys for transactions. We try to cut them off.
Low key, there's people making a lot of money smuggling chips into to take advantage of the arbitrage.
There are people have been caught at borders like with chips strapped to like most of their body.
Yeah,
and they obviously don't see the light of day after that, but at the same time, it's interesting.
Oh, really, that's what happens. They bring the hammer down on those people. Yeah, that makes sense. Like the deep state doesn't want China to have.
It seems like drug trafficking, trying to bypass these export bans and things like that. It's considered even worse.
Yeah. So
I've got a question.
Shoot.
When you were going through all this legal stuff, did you ever reach out to the EFF?
No, they're compromised. Kidding me?
Okay.
They're deep state, 100%. They're controlled opposition. They're there to have you sit out of the fight, think that the good guys that have your interest in mind, like but they'll turn around at a critical point during like some sort of event, and they'll be like, oh yeah, we're actually against like free speech. There's a very specific instance of that that I can't remember what it is right now. I think I posted one of my Twitter posts, but it was like they did like, oh yeah, they defended fucking Google. That's what it was. Right? Like, what the fuck? Why is the EFF defending like Google that we shouldn't like investigate them? And like, maybe bigger corporations are actually good for you've heard this argument by economists. They're like, oh, actually big corporations are good for stuff. The EFF went to the defense of like Google, and it blew my mind. And after that, I was like, there's no way that I would ever touch that. Like they've exposed themselves. And it's not like they expose themselves all the time. Like they have a front. It seems like they're doing good. And then right at a critical juncture, they're going to be like, turn the knife and backstab you. And so there's no way in hell that I would ever go to the EFF. I might as well go to the New York Times.
Now, I have a question about that, because a lot of people, they like to worship the water that the EFF walks on. I'm not one of those people, but I can understand the EFF acting that way, double backing, doing things like that. They're lawyers. That's what they do. How did you equate that with deep state?
Look,
How is EFF owned by the deep state and not just another evil company?
Look, these people are like, it's gentle.
Somebody in the comments said George Soros.
George Soros, yeah, all these, like, if they're in the news, they're pretty much compromised. Look, here's the thing: it's long-term soft influence. Over time, accumulates into, basically having shadow executive control of a corporation, right?
Okay, I can see that.
The ACLU posted a op-ed in the Washington Post saying, we need to end free speech. It's gone too far. And it's just like, of all the people, the ACLU, like, I posted it on Twitter, right? And it's like, you guys remember the that neo-Nazi rally in Charlottesville in 2017?
Mm-hmm.
You know who made that happen? The ACLU did an emergency filing in order to make sure that the neo-Nazis could march so that whole PSYOP could take place, right?
Do you think they're involved in the current marches?
Are they
the current
what?
Neo-Nazi marches? The one that happened last week in Ohio?
They're feds or some sort of intelligence assets. The police are protecting them. Like, it's weird. Like, you try to demask them and the police get in the way. Or what they'll do is they'll shut down an entire subway so that they can leave and like change clothes and no one knows who they are. And then one time they got unmasked. It turned out to be like some poli-sci kid with a bunch of Antifa postings. So obviously those are fake. That's why the police protect them. I know that's a lot of people aren't ready to hear that they would go this far in order to create theater, but that's what's going on. Like, they had a fake assassination attempt on the president twice, right? Like, you don't think they're going to hire some goons to go down there, like, masked up and scare the bejesus out of a bunch of lefties? Of course they are. Right? Get your mind off, like, what's happening. Get your mind off the fact that we're, giving, like, we're in $33 trillion worth of debt for money that was loaned out of fiat. Like, they just willed it into existence, said, okay, now, we owe this shadow banking system the total sum of private and public assets of this country. Like, in the future, we'll have a jubilee, but it'll be a debt asset swap where they basically,
we can't even pay the interest on that crap.
Yeah, it's larger than our defense budget. Like, they're going to do a takeover, and rather than talk about like the Federal Reserve and like what's happening with these insiders that are hypothecating the total sum value of all your economic output, we get to talk about feds dressing as neo-Nazis, basically parroting every single line that the media warned us about of who these people are, right? And yeah, so they're feds. Stephen Paddock, intelligence op. Like,
what about the Proud Boys? We have them marching here in Vegas. Same deal?
Yeah. You should look through the documents. Like I had an argument with Destiny Online. It was a really great video. And like, he's saying, oh no, there's no way this is all like what you're talking about. I was like, all right, well, let's go in a deep dive, right? We went to a deep dive, and it turned out like, 3 of them were informants, right? And it turns out that the main ringleader was an informant for the FBI. He was a snitch. What's that guy's name?
Wasn't that part of Operation Iron Fist too?
Yeah. Like, these are all spooks. Like, that's why the media is talking about it. Like, Jordan Peterson, fucking spook. Right? Like, how do you know?
I wouldn't go that far with JP.
Yeah, me neither. That's a long.
I think he's definitely aligned with some questionable interests, right? But I wouldn't quite far say
he doesn't have a guy with a hand like moving his mouth for him. But the thing is that he came out of fucking nowhere. He blew up, and he is a guy that's going to exist within the Overton window of acceptable discord. Right. And that what happens is that you establish the walls of what you can talk about online.
It's
right?
a 4x4 card of allowable opinion.
Exactly.
So we have another question. Somebody wants to know, this is Freedom Seed here, what you think about the Digital Bill of Rights that restricts AI corporations and protects human rights like free speech, 2A, privacy, search and seizure without a warrant.
Yeah, it's basically a hoax. Like, we're not going to slow down AI. Like, we're run by a military, like the international military industrial complex. Like, they're not going to like take away the gunpowder while they're inventing guns. Like, there's no way that they're going to stop or put any brakes on this train, because whoever has the AI rules the fucking world. right? Like, and mark my words. Right now, what I'm saying, they're not going to slow down AI. They will slow it down in Europe because they're a client state of the U.S. essentially, and we're sabotaging their economy. In order to make sure that we stay on top of the world.
Have you any familiarity with an old movie from the 70s called Colossus, the Forbin Project?
No. What is that?
It's a movie that predicts where we are right now, where the U.S. government generates this AI. They build this AI into the side of a mountain. They surround it by a radioactive barrier, and they turn over control of all the U.S. defense systems to it. And they basically go to the world and say, hey, it's out of our hands. You piss off the AI, you're going to, get hit. And they gave it control of the nukes and the weapons and everything. And what happened was, on the day they announced it, they were like, so Russia, you better leave us alone. And like an hour later, Russia said, oh, by the way, we built one too. And ours is called Guardian. And if you do anything to us, Guardian will blow you up, and it's out of our control. And then something happened that nobody expected. The two AIs got together and said, "To hell with you humans, we're taking over," and they do. And they take over everything. And there's this beautiful speech at the end of the movie where the two AIs basically say, "Look, mankind is its own worst enemy. We're taking over. You won't have war anymore because war is wasteful and stupid, and you're going to become intelligent and go to the stars with us guiding you. And if you don't like it, we'll kill you."
Yeah.
And that's the end of it. And, there's a cautionary tale there, because there's even a scene in the movie where they try to self-destruct the AI. And the AI catches on to it and kills a bunch of people. It says, don't do that again. So do you think that we're either A, going to be smart enough to put a kill switch in the AI so that if it ever starts to do this, we can pull the plug, or B, we're just absolutely doomed. AI is going to plow over us, and we're just biding our time right now until the big disaster? What do you think?
I think that post-equilibrium, when we have like a reset of everything, in the future, like none of us are going to have economic value to the system, which is the presumptive contract that we've always had with these military empires, right? Like they come in, they're not going to kill everyone because they want slaves so they can expand their military empire. The problem about what's coming is that it invalidates that primal assumption, the presumption of which all civilization is based, which is that fundamentally human people have unique economic value to the system. And for the first time ever in the history of this planet, that's no longer going to be true, right? And so I don't really know what's going to happen, right? Like Donald Rumsfeld was very famous, where he's like known knowns, known unknowns, unknown knowns, and then unknown unknowns. Like we're basically heading into the fourth quadrant, right? And so it's like I don't really know.
What do you think about that wonderful old saw about violence is the one authority from which all other authorities are derived?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Like, don't quote me law. We have guns. Like that's what's coming down the pipeline. Except this time it'll be outnumbered 20 or 100 to 1 with drones.
We've got Nathan piping in here. Nathan, you want to ask Zach some questions?
Yeah, no, I do. I just noticed something a couple minutes ago, and there were some questions earlier, and there was a little bit of speak earlier about gods and beliefs and stuff like that. And then I heard a whole bunch of talk about governments, which are kind of like what took over after gods. And it almost seems as though that there's this trail of thought that goes, okay, gods kind of became disproven and made irrelevant. Everybody became spiritual, agnostic, atheistic, or held on to their beliefs. Then the next step was, okay, well, let's replace it with the next god, government. And then the idea is going, well, this entire thing is falling apart. So since we're too cowardly to own up to humanhood, we're just going to go, well, AI is our new god, right? So I'm like, I've been paying attention to it, and I'm listening. The undertones that I'm listening for out of Zach are the undertones of what has changed in his life and what has radicalized him, but then also what remnants of his previous beliefs still exist, right? And so, like, this is all stuff I'm noticing, and I'm not going to go into specifics about it, but I mean, Zach, have you ever considered this stuff? Because I would imagine this stuff keeps you awake at night.
I mean, yeah, like I am sensitive to negative stimuli, right? Like I have a degree of neuroticism and I ruminate, right? And so it's like I play out these chess moves of what if I was a really evil piece of shit that owned everything, and I wanted to absolutely gain power. How would I play these out, right? And you know, I don't want that world in which we've ceded all of our sovereignty to a bunch of unelected technocrats, and that's where we're headed right now. And so it's not like about me. It's about, you know, what kind of world do we want to leave our collective children? Like, are we the weak link in which we just let it slide all out of our hands? You know, in 2019, I was like, we can stand up to this. And now in 2024, I'm not so sure, because people just want to believe so strong that like, how do you even start to like turn the population, you know, into a higher vibrational energy and make it spread? The people that run society wouldn't allow that, right? And
so the reason I asked the question is because that you came from a discipline that was so involved in this front, right? And that also that your personal life experience was, you know, completely uprooted because of your whistleblower. Now, to make a remark on what you just said.
No. It was my disgust of the system and realizing and seeing it for the very first time. And then the whistleblowing became a manifestation of how to be a rebel against that, so that when I die, my conscience is clear of all the shit that happened. Because I want no part of it. What they're doing is really, really awful.
I like you a lot. Let's not cross wires. Like I'm into this big time. All right. So don't let wires get crossed. But do you pick up on the procession that I'm saying, the link of like kind of like frog leaping from religion to government to AI, and always seeking a higher power, no matter how abusive it is?
Yeah, of course. That's what they're trying to do, right?
Well, you know, when it comes to things like that, I'm not afraid of a god. We've had plenty of them. They've come and they've gone. They're popular, they're unpopular. We build temples, they fall down. You know what I'm afraid of? The person with the gun who said, "My God just told me to kill you." You know the old saying, "Dear God, save me from your followers." I think that's going to be our problem. Our problem is going to be people who are so either into the AI, into the God, into the government. We use God to justify government. We use government to justify God. Trump is walking around right now saying we're going to put Bibles back in schools. I'm not afraid of a higher power or a greater intelligence. I'm afraid of the people walking around the street. And I have run into these people personally. I have had personal interactions with people who say, God told me to kill these people. That's what I'm afraid of more than anything else.
Yeah, but who's funding that?
They are. They're 9 to 5 jobs, and they buy a 6-pack of beer, a box of ammo, and a shotgun.
Wait. So you think that this is all a sporadic, self-forming phenomenon?
No, it's what's been going on with religion since the invention of religion.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's.
But what happens?
What all the other religions in order to get this monotheism installed in the world? Like all those pagans are like, oh, those evil pagans, devil worshippers, child sacrifice. Yeah. They literally obliterated all the other religions and replaced it with this Abrahamic conspiracy, essentially.
Right. Well, the pagans and the Wiccans and all the neo-religions aren't the ones walking around with guns saying, join us or die. They're saying, don't want to join us? Fine. Have a nice day. We're going to go into the woods and screw.
Well, I mean, the barbarians were pagan. They took down Rome.
I'm talking about modern ones, not
Yeah, they've been
historical.
obliterated. It's like the Native Americans. Like, they've got no real power anymore.
I mean, so Delchai, the question that you really have to consider is who is harboring the desire to control others, and then who is desiring to tear down that control. So if you're somebody, and I'm not saying that you are, but I'm just saying if one is imposing their will on others, and they're really upset that they're going to have their ability to strip other people's will away, torn away, and they're scared of that, and they're bad, and they don't like a certain technology because of that, well, then that technology would be freeing, right? And Zach, you just mentioned the Overton window, right? So we can talk about the Overton window and how Overton window has been successfully used for creating authoritarianism or taking authoritarianism away. Two good examples would be women's rights to vote. Okay, that goes into the Overton window. Then we see great freedom, push it up. It goes up into away from authoritarianism, and women can vote. Then we see the counterway, right? And this is how the Overton window works, which gods don't allow for, which governments don't allow for, and which AIs will not allow for, right? So this is where the human element is important.
I mean, they won't allow it to organically expand. They'll set the boundaries, and then their influencers will, push it back and forth.
Yeah, so the idea is to Overton window. The full name is the Overton window of political possibility. But the thing is it ought not be called that because fuck policy. I think a better idea is let's have a discussion. And the Overton window is when things become topical and we can have a good discussion about it. So the second example I'm going to give, because I just gave the example of women's suffrage. The second example would be prohibition, right? Prohibition. Everybody thought that, opioids were a problem and everything like that. And if we got rid of alcohol, that we'd get rid of opioids. And so they decided to do prohibition. And they did that for a while. So the idea of alcohol got into the Overton window, it became much more authoritarian, and we got full-on prohibition. Lasted for a couple of years, didn't solve any problems. Everybody was pissed off. And then the Overton window immediately shifted back towards freedom.
Wait. It solved a huge problem, which was you had a bunch of people making alcohol, and they want it centralized. And so the whole thing about prohibition was wiping out the middle layer of America that was like engaging in this bootlegging and this like home distillery. Like that got wiped out after prohibition.
The whole home distillery thing happened back in the 1780s and 90s with the Whiskey Rebellion. All right. The very first president was a huge piece of shit and turned 10,000 U.S. troops against grain farmers in Western Pennsylvania and Kentucky, the Whiskey Rebellion. I didn't want to get into that part of history. I just wanted to provide an example of the Overton window shifting in both directions on one topic. Right. So that's why I brought that up. And I've got to say, Zach, I have loved this episode. I've been listening on the sidelines and been super stoked on this. I'm going to tap out. You guys can do whatever you want. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Thanks for hopping in.
Thanks, Nathan.
Nathan.
If you guys want to hit me with criticism, feel free. I'm pretty resilient to it. I love the debate. I don't know if you guys are crushed for time or something.
No, I got a few more questions for you, though. So what motivated you to create an open source, well, a wrapper, mind you, but to utilize an AI tool after your experience with AI was so negative at Google? Like, why depend on a tool that helps you code using AI if we're also seeing AI is being used to manipulate people's opinions and search results when you go to search for something? Like, are we trying to use the same tool for good, or is it unrelated in your thought process?
Let me put it another way. All right. Like, let's say that there's guns that are spreading around. It's like, why would you want to own a gun? Like, aren't you against guns? And it's like, no, guns are the future of warfare, and I want one. AI is a weapon of warfare. And it makes me, 4x more powerful when I code, right? Like, I take the unit tests, I pipe it into the AI figures out what files need to be edited and does some things, and then reruns the unit test over and over and over in an automatic cycle. Like
That's
that
a
is
good analogy.
I'm
because
immediately hearing,
AI
powerful.
is similar to guns in terms of leveling the playing field.
Yeah,
I'm
we're trying to
immediately hearing God made man and Sam Colt made him equal.
Like Sam Altman's doing powerful AI. Like I'm just trying to get some parity here. And in the meanwhile, I've been able to explode my productivity by this AI tool. Like this open source software, 90% of the code is generated by this tool and also Copilot, right? Like I'm not gonna not grab that, pile of
You'd be shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, right. It's like it's like I'm a good guy. I should have some parity because if we don't, it's going to be the worst people of society. Like Sam Altman, right? He's a POS, right? Liar, sneaky, did this whole open thing, and then backdoor a for-profit corporation, and then just took the whole thing for profit and closed everything down. Like it's a joke now that they even called themselves OpenAI. Like they haven't even released Sora yet. Like they've been dangling this in front of us for 9 months now. Like these are the people that control AI. There's nothing bad about me taking these same tools and using it for good, make the world a brighter place. And I've got to ride the wave because there's a tsunami following quickly behind it. Nothing I can do or protest at this point. Like I've given up everything. My career was making $250,000 a year to warn people of this AI. Most people don't care. Like that's the honest truth. And so we're going to get what we deserve. And at this point, I've given up on trying to change the world, and I'm, taking up a surfboard and surfs up. I'm going to ride this wave as far as I can go. I spent a lot of time improving this AI tool because it's turned me into that 10x coder that I always wanted to be, because I'm sloppy. I mistype things. I have a lot of issues. This AI is, but I love test-driven development, and this AI thrives off linting and test-driven development because these serve as feedback mechanisms that automate and tell it, include in what's gone wrong in a way that matches its training data. That's the thing, is they've got all the synthetic data of compiler errors and what they did to fix it, right?
So is it pretty reliable? Because junior coders, whatever, there used to be that running joke where they'd copy paste from some website. And I feel like maybe that's going to become a thing with AI. How accurate is it? Or even, I guess another question would be is it secure?
Yeah. So here's my answer to that. Anyone that doesn't engage in test-driven development, there's a rock star coder, no unit tests, whatever, this AI is going to be a net negative for you. All right. You have to have the unit tests. You have to have the linting, because that's going to match the synthetic data that it's been trained on. Right. It knows what this compiler error means. It knows it goes there's so many times today that I was I don't even know what the C++ gnarly 3-page template error is. And I just feed into the AI in an automated way, and it looks at it, knows the files, sees what's going on, and then basically says, oh, the reason why you're having this compiler error is because GCC is doing a 2-phase lookup, and so it's considering functions that it shouldn't be because the type is off because it's only going through a first pass, right? And then it fucking writes template magic to figure it out. This is a hyper exotic life form that we're dealing with now, and the influencers on Learn to Code, right? Like the Primogen or Theo, all they do is talk shit about AI and how all these studies say that it's plateauing and it's not it's actually net negative. Bullshit. It's a net negative. 90% of this code that I'm generating is AI generated now with this prompting. I'm more like a magician summoning up this huge thing, and I've learned all these prompts, interacting through it 8 hours a day to figure out how to guide it into what it's going to make a mistake now, and I can sort of guide it with hints like a wizard. And the thing that makes it powerful is the fact that I do unit tests on everything. And so something breaks, because that's the problem with AI. It has a lot of entropy in your code. And so you're constantly doing diffs, right? I've turned into a code reviewer of what the AI is producing, right? There's sometimes I miss something, right? A statement gets done and all of a sudden something breaks. But the thing is that you want to catch it immediately as soon as it happens with a thorough unit test that tests everything. And then as soon as it happens, the AI will go, oh yeah, I forgot to set this value before I return the object. There you go. You're off. And so if you have that, it's going to be a really, really great experience. And if you don't, you're going to be like, yeah, it's kind of a wash.
I was
Well, we got
playing with an
another
AI last night where you could feed it an Nmap scan and it points out, oh, hey, here's some attacks you could try. I was like, okay, cool. But none of it was useful, but it was neat. It tried.
Are you a coder? Do you use it to code at all?
A little. I'm not going to call myself a developer, but when I need to, it works.
Okay. Yeah.
Janky script.
Well, now you've got the powerful AI
All
tool
the
that
Python scripts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
jank script, man. All day. All day. That's all you got from me, though.
We got another question here. It is, if AI is a weapon of warfare, then shouldn't it be protected for civilians to use in self-defense?
Yeah,
And then
it's the new Second Amendment, right?
Response.
Like we got to give ourselves a leg up, right? Like we had guns when that became the new thing. We need to have like some sort of AI Bill of Rights where we have a guaranteed right through the Constitution to be able to interact with the artificial intelligence. Even if we have to give up our freedoms in terms of like surveillance, we just need to have the ability to commune with this hyper exotic life form. Because if we don't, that's game over. Like screw freedom of speech. It's communing with this AI is going to be the next freedom of speech thing in the future, this next Second Amendment rights. And if we don't have that, then what's going to happen is we won't have that right, but the elite will. And that's game over.
That would be interesting if they amended the Constitution for this.
They should. I mean, it'll be post-equilibrium, like when they get through the whole thing and they figure out like who is really the king of the world. Like after that, then, I think we're going to have a period of normalization where things get a lot better. They pour a lot of money on everyone, but we just won't have a sizable ownership of the total output of the economy, which will be driven by robots and space mining and, all of this advanced nuclear energy that's, coming online now. Like we're going to have stuff that'll make us feel like we're rich, but in the total aggregate output of the economic system, we'll have probably 5% will be allocated to us. And God help you if you have to take a vaccine to get your universal basic income. That's fucking game over.
As humans right now, in a system right before we're going to have this giant paradigm shift in how AI is going to pretty much affect all of us, whether it be from our ability to get an everyday job that might now be automated from an AI system to your average burger flipper who now doesn't have a job because McDonald's has built a thing that's going to flip the burgers, right? All these people, how do we get them to continue to be useful members of society when their jobs have disappeared and also be able to take care of themselves?
Right. Well, you got to sneak in universal basic income, right? And you're seeing this now. Like there was this leak sheet that came out from Canada, which supposedly was like the plans of the New World Order. What they said is that they're going to sneak in UBI through reparations of disfavored minorities. What do you see happening right now in New York and California? They're doing the exact, states that never had slaves are now agreeing to reparations, right? It's a government funding money coming in. And the thing is that, if you attack this, form of UBI, you're a bad person. And they're just going to expand that ring. Well, it's unfair that we give this, the blacks, the UBI. We should also give it to, the trans community or something else. Like just pick your minority. We're going to segment them. They're also going to get payments for reparations. And then pretty soon we're going to end up and everyone's getting reparations, or maybe they'll switch the name and call it stakeholder capitalism or some, basically what it is, it's a ration system where they're going to the central planners are going to allocate a small portion of the total sum economic output for us. And they're going to take all the rest because, they got to prepare for the final battle between, us and China. Us and China is basically the two axis powers. I don't know how much they're thoroughly cucked, but the fact that they were able to kill all of the CIA agents in 2012, there was a massive kill off of CIA agents throughout China all at the same time. It happened in a span of a week or something. We don't even know how they did it.
That was due to stupidity on our intelligence agencies' parts when setting up communication systems that they were reaching back to talk to. They put them all on a sequential subnet. So once one was uncovered, everybody else knew. These are the guys who are talking back to the U.S. It's not a sports website or whatever it appears to be. It's actually the front end for these operatives and spies to talk back, and that was a pretty big fuck up.
Whoa,
That's
wait.
an extreme case of Spot the Fed.
So they had a centralized meetup online, and China hacked into it, found out all of them, and killed them off.
Close. It was a subnet essentially that they bought a block of IP addresses, and each thing on this block of IPs was all a website that was geared towards like, hey, if you're a spy, you don't have access to Tor. You need to get a communication back to us in our area here. This is how you're going to do it. You're going to go to the sports betting website. You're going to click down here, this little icon, and then it's going to bring you to a secret messaging area where you can relay your information back over an SSL encrypted session. And they did this on a contiguous net block of IPs. And when one of these websites got found out, all of the rest of them were exposed. And then China was able to nerf a bunch of our guys over there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was stupidity at whoever the hell decided to set this up. Like, let's just use contiguous IPs within the same net block was a retarded decision.
Sounds dumb. Like it sounds like an unforced error.
Fire the
It
intern.
sounds like a lowest bidder situation, which is typical of our government.
Yeah.
Which is another reason I'm terrified of them getting involved in AI projects and outsourcing them to the lowest bidder, because that's how we're going to end up with some other really stupid shit happening. I digress. I'm very opinionated myself, but I try to bite my tongue a lot. Zach, key takeaway in terms of your AI coding. What do you think, being a 10x coder, in terms of your productivity and your ability to earn an income for yourself, has it really like made a big difference in your life, being able to use this coding tool and get like more jobs, more work?
I became director of engineer. I became director of engineering for, and I'm going to be public with this now because like I was under non-disclosure, but you know that Robert Epstein guy that was like on Joe Rogan and he recently appeared with RFK. I'm the director of engineering for his bias monitoring system, which is called americasdigitalshield.com. And it's the only thing like it in the world. All right, so let me just show you.
Is that the whistleblowers thing, the protect the whistleblowers?
Something different, right? So this is basically the closing chapter of my struggle against big tech, is that I became director of engineering for this website that basically captures, let's see, where are we up to now? We're at up to 114 million data points that we've captured through HTML snapshots and image PNG snapshots from browsers that collaborators install, and they're all throughout the United States, and they collect all this information as they're going through YouTube and Google and Bing and Yahoo and and you can see like Twitter is very right-wing, right? Reddit is almost exclusively left-wing. What's really funny is that you're going to notice that there are three things missing from this website. You're going to see TikTok missing, you're going to see Facebook missing, and you're going to see Instagram missing. Do you know why that is?
Because they're automated Chinese influence operations?
No, because they literally shut off all the propaganda prior to this election. They turned it off, and I was trying to like figure out like, why is it like this? Like, why would they turn it off? I couldn't believe it. Like it was weird. So little that I had to go and tell my boss, like, yeah, we have to turn off the graphs because we can't get blood from a stone. He said, what do you mean? It's like, there's literally no propaganda. He's like, how is that even possible? So,
I was still seeing ads on Facebook, at least.
You'll see ads, but you're not. What happened is they turned off the news feed. So it changes to the news feed. That was in 2021, but in February of this year, deprecated. See, February 2024. This is when they announced it, and they announced it in February. It took effect in April. Okay, so this is a follow-up. I haven't seen this blog post yet, but it's a follow-up. In early April, we deprecated Facebook News, a dedicated tab for news content in the United States and Australia. And look, they also deprecated in France, Germany, and whatever. People are still able to view whatever in their feeds. This is an ongoing effort to better align our investments and our products, services, people.
Well, isn't that also partially due to the economics in terms of the need to compensate people who are doing news stuff? That was an excuse they made, at least. That the reason they're taking down the news is
that's the cover story, right? Oh, it's like, look, they lost a ton of goodwill by aligning themselves with this deep state in the 2020 elections. Like they went from, hey, this is really cool, to like, it's also a demoralizing factor to be so partisan for all your employees. Like those engineers right now are the lifeblood of the company. Later will be AI, but back then, your engineers, like if you have a demoralized group of engineers, they're going to leave. They're going to do something else, which is what happened at YouTube. Right. And this is what's happening now at Facebook. It went from the hip, like big corporation that's actually, on the side of humanity, to IBM. Worse, Sun Microsystems, Oracle, whatever. Like they're now part of that clique because of what they did in the 2020 elections and because of the massive amount of censorship. And why? Why did they need to do all that? Like they haven't gotten anything out of Biden's election. Like he did IRS Rule 174. Which reclassified software expenditures as a 5-year amortized investment, right? Same as like getting a truck or something, like a huge capital investment. 5 years, you got to amortize it. Software development is now classified under IRS Rule 174, right? Like this is going to destroy the software innovation of this whole country, because like you're a startup, you make $100,000. You spend that on research and development. The government, the IRS is like, no, not so fast. That $100,000, you can only deduct 10% of that for the first year. And then it goes up for the next year, but it's 5 years until you get to deduct that whole thing. Like, how are we going to compete? Like the whole part of a startup is that you're burning money so that you can make money. Now they're going to count that as shadow income. Right? Like,
why do you think Google's giving away so much in terms of their AI offerings to startups? Is it so they can steal their proprietary info?
Yeah, it's also they can disemploy everyone. Look what happened before all of this like automation started hitting like really strong. Like there's a huge pump in automation with McDonald's, with Safeway. Like what happened after that? Like there was this huge push for labor rights and higher wages, right? And people started organizing for a strike. And I'm sitting there going like, they're going to automate all those fucking jobs away if people start being uppity and acting like, they deserve $40 an hour for flipping burgers, right? Like, I'm sorry, like, BurgerBot is going to flip that at 25 cents of energy, assuming 25 cents per kilowatt hour, right? It's going to sit there. It's going to flip all those burgers. It's going to do it fast. It's not going to complain. And it's probably going to break down less than the ice cream machine, right? And just look at what the price of somebody would be. Like, how much is a burger flipping robot, right? Well, $40 an hour, you're going to pay somebody like close to like $80,000 a year, right? $80,000 is going to get you a really good robot, and it's going to keep on working and doing productivity. And that $80,000 robot that you get 1 year is going to be $20,000 the year after that, because the next models come out. Like,
yeah. And then if you up the prices, people are going to be like, if you up the prices to pay higher wages at, say, McDonald's, the supply is going to, or the demand rather, would just be like, oh, we can't afford it, or we can't afford as much stuff as we're used to. And just, there's a fine balance there.
Well, there's a couple of fallacies involved there too. And you mentioned one of my favorite ones, the ice cream machine. The ice cream machines are not broken. It's actually a DRM issue.
It's a right to repair issue right there.
Yeah.
Exactly. You have to call a certain company with a certain technician and a certain code to clear anything that any person could do. Like if it meant like wiggling the hose a little bit or priming the pump, you can't do that. And the company makes you pay X $100 an hour for their technician to come in there. So that's
really, our farmers
that's
the same
a
way.
false flag. A false flag. That's a false problem. It's not that the machine is breaking down. It's not that it's no good. It's not that it's defective. It's that you have to call a guy 2 hours away to fix it every time. And the other half of that problem is you talk about the burger flippers that want to make all that extra money. There's two sides to that story. On the one hand, like when I was growing up, my grandfather used to tell me, yeah, we're always going to need people to dig ditches. There's always going to be a need for that cheap labor. But the thing is, that's not true anymore.
Right.
With the advent of automation, robotics, and such. But the problem is the people have to do their part as well. Are you familiar with the original Ronald Dahl version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
Not that much. I've heard about it though.
In the book, Charlie's dad had a job screwing the tops on tubes of toothpaste. And the family got impoverished when he got laid off and replaced by a robot. What happened was at the end of the book, you find out that Charlie's dad went out and learned how to fix robots and got a better job at the same company maintaining the robot that took his job away from him. So there's an argument saying that people need jobs that pay a living wage, but there's also an argument of, you know what, if you want to make a living wage, maybe you ought to invest in yourself. Become the person who fixes the burger bot. Become the person who does the wiring or does the programming for BurgerBot. It's still a low-end job, but it pays a lot better than flipping the burgers. I didn't just jump into computers and security instantaneously. I spent years fixing them, break fix, pulling out this card, sticking in that card, plugging in modems, running serial cables.
Yep.
And eventually, I became the kick-ass guitar hero that I am. So I think that there's a side of that where you can't have people sit there and go, no, I want a dumb job that pays me as much as Tony Stark because I want to be like him in my car with the Playboy bunnies and stuff. Okay, no, wrong. Move along. But the person who says, hey, how about teaching me how to work the robot, how to fix the robot? Those are the people that are going to make it. And those are the people who aren't going to be left behind. And they're the ones that aren't going to be so bad off at the end of the day. And so I think there's a solution there on both sides. Automation is going to cut costs and make money for the shareholders, which is the only reason why companies exist in the first place. Okay? They're going to cut corners any way they can. They went from using potatoes to using ground up potato paste because the bad potatoes could be used as well as the good potatoes, and you don't have to pay somebody to sit there and strong arm the potato slicer all day long.
So
they don't want people to sit there and make fries. They want you take the fries out of the freezer, you put them in the basket, you press the button, the basket lowers, the basket raises. This is the way it's going to be. You have to adapt with that. You can't just sit there and say, no, I'm not going to take a car to work. I'm going to keep my horse and buggy. Well, you can move to Pennsylvania and live with a couple thousand people who feel that way. Or you can develop and evolve yourself like we need to in order to survive. So you can't put any singularity of blame on that. And if they do raise the prices have gone up. I mean, they always go up. They rarely go down, but they always go up. I mean, 75 cents for a cheeseburger when I was a kid. Now, I'm paying $50 for a delivery pizza. So you've got to change with the times. You got to roll with the times. And maybe instead of fighting it and saying, I'm not going to work if I have to work with a robot, you say, I'm going to learn how to fix the robot. I'm going to learn how to work the robot. I'm going to program the robot because they sure as hell can't do it by itself.
So there's this really interesting thing that Elon Musk said in an interview, which when I heard it, I was like, this is a very interesting perspective. And his perspective was this, is that there's this sort of feedback mechanism in automation where you don't get the benefits of the automation to like the last 5%, because it's like, as you automate more and more, the intelligence requirements to operate.
Oh no.
Did we just lose him?
You're doing great.
Did he do the die?
He
I hit the wrong button.
He said the
Sorry
magic
about that,
word.
Zach.
Okay, all right. Oh, no.
Yeah. And so the thing is that we're at this part where we're starting to get towards the 100% of everything being automatable. And then what happens is that when you get to a fully autonomous system, like all costs go radically down and productivity goes through the roof. Elon Musk is doing this with his Tesla, right? Automating everything, automating the shit out of it. And this is the thing, is that like you can keep on getting, like we used to have candle makers, right? They had to evolve to like, some other menial, industrial labor where they could sell their time. But now it's like, you got to learn to code to adapt. And soon it will be like, you got to get a neural link and commune with the hyper intelligence at the neuronal level in order to increase your bandwidth at which you can interact with it. Like I am slow typing on the keyboard. Like if I get a 1 gigabyte connection directly in my brain, my neurons will adapt and I'll become this hyper-productive individual, which
that's been predicted.
Deus Ex Human Revolution.
Right.
Have you ever heard of a movie called Sleep Dealer?
No.
In that movie, the Mexican workers live in these little dirt hovel, these little poor communities in Mexico, saving up their money to get the exact implants you're talking about.
Right.
And then they go into a Quonset hut, also in Mexico, and they remote control robots all through the United States that are doing construction, loading and unloading, things like that. And the movie goes really in depth into how that's going to affect things, because you don't have the problem with people coming over the border illegally anymore. They just got to save up enough money to get their implants and then work the robots remotely. I think that's going to happen long before everybody in the US has to get a chip in their head if they want a job. And when it comes to coding, we've got kids that are like, 5 years old, 6 years old that can code now.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to approach, I think, what they call transhumanism, to the point where the human and the technology are going to merge on a particular level. But we're nowhere near that yet. We're still at the stage where if I had access to the coding, the tools, and the computers that these kids have from the day they were born right now, there's no telling what I could have done. But back when I first got a computer, I had to go dumpster diving for parts and put them together and see which ones sparked and which ones blew up. I had an IMSI 8080 that before you could use the dumb terminal, you had to program the dumb terminal program by flipping toggle switches on the front of it. But now you got 2-year-olds running around with iPads, turning on the TV and putting on their cartoons. And those kids learn to code.
Gary, his kid can't even read yet, but can use an iPad. And it's pretty freaking scary, because they can play these games and they can navigate themselves around, but they can't talk yet. It's like
that's going to be the interesting thing to watch in the future. We saw a little glimpse of it in the late 80s, early 90s when Cisco started putting little mini Cisco academies inside of high schools. And they tried to replace shop class with be a Cisco engineer. It didn't last very long, but it made some people's lives quite different than what they would have been. So we've got a future. I don't think it's fair to say doom and gloom and AI is going to come in here and bugger us all and all that. But we've got to keep in mind the human condition is very human. People who have money and power want two things: to keep the money and power they have and to acquire more money and power. That's not going to change.
And to keep it.
Yes, that's what I said. To keep what they have and to get more. And Elon Musk is no visionary. He's this generation's Bill Gates, who saw something interesting, threw some money at it, called it his own, and turned it into an empire. Okay, I would be surprised. I would be surprised if Elon Musk could operate a microwave. But he's smart enough to know who can and to buy them up and make money and make profit off of them until he's the richest person on the planet. And that's what succeeds. It's what Bill Gates did. It's what every politician does. We have politicians that are making the decisions for us that have more money just sitting on their asses than we could ever get an entire life of working. So I don't think we need to be afraid. I think we need to be aware, and I think we need to take action.
No! You should record that and play it back to yourself. And 5 years from now, when you see the unleashing of the military-industrial complex fueled by this AI stuff,
that's what's going to happen if we're not aware and we don't take action. If we're not aware and we don't take action, you're 100% right.
They've got exponential growth. It takes you know how long it took me to become semi-decent at programming? Like a decade. They're training their AI models on this, and then once they have the 8 gigabyte CSV file, they can just make 1 million of them. Like where's the AI going to be in 2 years? Right? It's going to be more knowledgeable than total sum. It already is. Like ChatGPT is amazing. I can go in any sort of language. Like I did an Android app in Kotlin. I didn't know Kotlin, right? But I had ChatGPT and Copilot. She was amazing. Like it was almost as if there was a light that was illuminating everything that I wanted to figure out really quickly. right in front of me just in time. All the just in time knowledge that I need in order to like tackle this foreign language that I had never used before. Very nice language too, by the way.
I used Perplexity the other night to write a shell script to process a batch of files for me, and it couldn't do it.
Yeah, well,
it failed. It failed syntax, and then it finally said, "Well, I don't know what to do. You should probably go and get a book and read up on how this works."
I've never used Perplexity AI. I don't know if it even scores well in the coding benchmarks.
Oh, in theory, it's supposed to knock Chat GPT in the dirt.
No.
So far, Perplexity is my favorite.
Yeah, I'll show you the benchmarks. Yeah, the best benchmarks on AI performance comes from this chat program, and he's got a whole suite of benchmarks. Is how he integrates all his stuff and put up on the screen.
Well, I'm just saying, I told it to write the simplest shell script, and it couldn't do it. So I don't see Skynet happening anytime soon.
Dude, I'm living this thing that you're saying is not possible. Like I'm addicted to
coding.
Oh,
it's possible.
AI.
But there's still time. There's time.
Like, I asked some AI to make me a shell script, and like I've converted entire code bases from JavaScript to Python, Bash to Python, right? And
I asked it to move my PBX from ESXi to Proxmox, and it couldn't do it.
What's that? Is that Proxmox?
Virtualization platforms. I said, take this program and move it from platform A to platform B. And it was like bad information, wrong information, blah, blah, boom, boom, boom. All I'm saying is that there's still time. What you're talking about is completely correct, and I agree with you. And that's where we're going to end up if we're not careful now.
So Delcha, I know what you're trying to do, and I don't even think Perplexity can take like full files. It's mainly text-based, if I'm not mistaken.
All I know, you're supposed to be able to ask, write me a script that does this. And
I had to use a tool from VMware to actually do what you were trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
So Perplexity has different underlying LLMs you can pick from, and obviously Claude Sonnet is pretty damn good at programming, but the way that Perplexity is implementing it is not the same way that Claude itself does it. So there's it's using API calls essentially to use the same model, but it's not the same interface.
I'm talking forest for the trees here. Okay, I'm not trying to shill for one over the other, and I'm not trying to do some kind of Craigslist comparison as to which one is better. Okay, what I'm trying to say is that we are looking down the barrel of some bad things happening, which Zach, you pointed out. And all I'm saying is that if we just sit and stay complacent right now, we're going to be right in the middle of that. You have stood up, you have took action, you have done things that have changed the world and the perception of the world as we know it. We need more people like you to do that if we want to avoid what you're talking about happening.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is that we can't avoid it, that it's a force of nature, and that we need to start looking at this as it's going to happen, and we need to start figuring out how we're going to survive it. For my solution to this is I'm going to grab the bull by the horns and learn how to use this AI tool as effectively as possible.
Yeah, you go.
That's the right answer.
And that's what I recommend it for everyone else. Like if you're a programmer and you're not using AI right now, like it changes. How long would this?
I am. I'm just not having a whole hell of a lot of success with it.
Well, that's why we're here talking about this tool, AI Code. Let's make this better with some fancy CSS animations. Why not? Right?
Hey, here you go.
There we go. Right now, it did the layout. You've got the drop shadows, like that. Like you can just keep on going with brain surgery all the way. Refactor this code, strip out all the JS, put it somewhere else. The entropy will kill you, which is why you have to have the unit test. But fortunately, you can get the AI to write that as well. Like the whole pipeline.
Tell it to block the NordPass that you're using. You see the NordPass icon? Tell it to block that and don't allow it.
All right. Here, I'm just gonna let it go through its last edit because it's a two-phase. It's an architect.
Let's give it a challenge.
Yeah, tell it to
Blinky lights and animations are nice, but let's give it a challenge.
Yeah, block
Right.
the block
But
the Nord, block
the
the-
NordPass is being rendered by the browser plugin he's got. That's not by the code.
Yeah,
on the
and
page.
you should be able to write code to get around that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna approach that problem. Okay. It's doing a lot of CSS right now, so we're gonna see a big refresh when it happens. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the in order to capture what the NordPass is doing, I'm going to take a snapshot of the HTML as it exists in the DOM hierarchy right now. I'm going to ask it to try to like identify what the icons are. Oh, there we go. Look at that. We got like animation.
There you go.
Oh, like it's all 3D.
That's cool.
Is that fucking awesome?
Shiny.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. So I'm going to take this, and the thing is that what speeds it up is you're trying to get these feedback loops between the machine, right? The more you can do that, like because these things have a huge context window, so you can just, you can just really crank it up. All right. I think this will give me the DOM as it kind of exists, right? All right. So this outer HTML, let's just do this. So I'm going to give it a task, and this task is going to be like, I want you to figure out, I don't have to spell it correctly, like a statistical machine. It knows what I'm typing. I want you to figure out how to block the NordPass icon that is appearing next to the logon credentials.
From my plugin.
Well, not just block the icon, just stop it altogether. Now, you can make the icon go away, but can you take
block
away
the script? Which
It'll
is
probably figure it out.
preferred. Let's just see it. Let's just challenge accepted. All right. Now I'm just going to take this HTML. We're just going to fucking post it right in there. Da, 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 da. All right. Let's see what it says. So to block the thing, blah, 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 blah. It's going around. I want to expand. Oh, there we go. All right. Edit these files. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, here we go. This should be the final
Lots
edit.
of 2 cents to do that. Spend 15 cents on this whole session. I
Wow,
like
yeah.
that it shows you the current API usage cost. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Fathomably wild if this works.
There you go. Took it off.
My God.
Hey,
That's
slow
sick.
clap.
That would have taken me so long to figure out how to do.
Oh,
yeah.
it's back.
Oh,
Back.
you got
The other
that.
one. The other one.
It definitely got rid of the last past one though.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
Right?
Absolutely crazy.
Wow.
I'm
That's
getting dizzy looking at the sign-up page.
that's like the best sign-up page I've ever seen in my life. This is insane.
That's gonna be a phishing page later. Promise.
Right. And so like right now,
Hey,
there's
that's all I'm going to use this for.
Oh, dude, do you have the ability to upload a screenshot to this tool at all? Like, if I wanted to like look at a screenshot, not yet, right?
yeah, you can do voice too. Like
Can-
let's just do let's see. See, it's got a whole bunch of commands, voice, ask, clear. I would love to do yes. So
So if I want to feed it what it looks like a login page and tell it to recreate the HTML for it, would it be able to do that?
with an image.
Yeah. So like say I take an Office 365 login page that's customized for a particular tenant, and I take a screenshot of it, and I tell this tool, I want you to recreate this and have it look visually the same, but change the functionality of the back end so that it will send the token to me, but still allow the person to log in by then proxying that authentication back to the person.
I don't think it does. I don't think it does vision. I'm just gonna see what the thing is. So that's my
There,
portion of it.
reinvent evil jinx here.
Nope, it doesn't look like it does it. But the thing is that you can get the supplemental support by going through, ChatGPT, which does have the vision analysis. Like they just haven't attached the vision analysis for whatever reason. But take a screenshot, put it into ChatGPT 4, and then say, tell it to make a prompt that you can feed back into Claude, and it'll figure it out. And so you can supplement it that way.
Yes.
Pretty cool. Have you tried cascading LLMs with this, where you essentially can filter it on a cheaper LLM and then have it pass the output to a more expensive one?
That's actually what's happening with the architect mode and the engineering mode. Like they break it up into two different roles. Like what radically increases the performance of these AI models is if you can simulate the chain of thought reasoning, right? Like if you see all these, right? It's like when you see all these projects, like, oh, this AI will just like create like a snake game, right? Like Basically, what they've done is they've figured out a way to create a series of queries that go back and forth with like an adversarial AI
agent model. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, let's just see if we can do. Let's see if we can do a snake game, right? Like rewrite this. Yeah, we're gonna restore the chat. Takes a little while.
Now we've actually seen companies that have startups that have no programmers on staff, and they've used AI to write actual end user products with no person in the middle other than people prompting an LLM. Do you see a future where programmers might not even be needed if it's so simple for people to essentially describe what they want and get a coding tool to make it for them?
Yeah, I do.
Screw over the programmers.
I do see it eventually. We're going to have the generation of synthetic data to get into all these different domains that right now are sort of outside of the training window. But, it's like we have like the amount of synthetic data that we have is just, it outnumbers all of the total data we've ever made before computers. And it's like
what about the Ouroboros problem of like eating its own tail, getting dumber over time?
Right. Well, I mean, what I mean by synthetic data is like, compiler errors, for example.
Okay.
Right? Like that's synthetic data. It's trainable. So there's a snake in the background. Let's just increase the contrast here, though. Radically increase the contrast and make the snake more green. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like it's going to be the learn to code again, like all over again, but it's going to be like just jack into the AI, and so
we saw a library using the host the web server. That's not simple HTTP server from Python, is it?
It's an npm package called live server. It has like a thing will trigger refresh, so it's automatically reloading as soon as there you go. There's a snake game going on. Okay, but let's make the snake go longer. The snake needs to get a longer tail as time progresses. Now, here's the thing. I've got 2 decades as a software developer, right? Professionally, longer than that if you count education, right? I know what architects work. I've made so many mistakes that I can see things happening from a mile away. And so the thing is, I've got this high-end knowledge, this 20,000 foot view of like what code should be. Okay.
But what if these LLMs watch the inputs that you're giving it and eventually can do that on their own?
Yeah, they can. But the thing is that you still need to have a supervisor sentinel that looks at the AI and basically interprets what it's doing, because the elites need to know what the fuck's going on. And so what's going to happen is that we're going to get into this age where essentially there's going to be like some segment of the population. I'm probably part of that segment that really is addicted to artificial intelligence and coding. Like it's the most amazing. Like I'm laughing at how fast I'm coding right now. And the thing is that it's going to be those transhumanists that are going to be given the reins of power, right? And like most people, like the amount of people that aren't doing this AI on a daily basis is like 95%. 95% of the people just aren't having any interaction. Like most of the coders I know aren't doing AI. Like the influence have told them that it's worthless. They don't do unit testing. They're not getting any benefit from it. They're going to be left in the fucking dust. Like they already are. Like I'm 8 times more effective than anybody else. And the thing is, I can go through new code bases and just grep it, because all I'm doing is like guiding an AI into like analyzing what's going on, generating its own prompts in order to be effective. And it's like I'm developing all these skills right now, day in and day out, hour after hour after hour. I've never been this addicted to coding as well, by the way. This is a new thing.
You know how in school they make you use like a TI-83 calculator in your calc class? They don't want you cheating and using a more advanced thing. As people are learning coding nowadays and going to school, do you think they should be not allowed to use AI tools to do like their homework? if they have to actually learn how to.
No, it's like the whole calculator problem, right? Like I was when I was taking math, I was like, why can't I use my calculator on this math test? Like, well, you need to learn this stuff because like in the future, you're not always going to have a fucking calculator in your pocket, right? Like, how did that work out for them, right? Here's a calculator that's always in my pocket. I can do arithmetic pretty easily now. And my numbers are exact, right? Like this tide of using computers is not going to reverse. It's just going to be more ubiquitous as we go forward. And so right now,
what happens if we all get dependent on this kind of technology as a society, and then it goes away, whether it be a Carrington event or anything else? And now we have a generation of idiocracy idiots who don't know how to do anything.
God, I hope a Carrington event comes. It's the only thing that can destroy this AI. Fucking shit. Like, I hate it and I love it at the same time. That's the ironic thing about it, is that I both hate it and am awestruck at the power and addicted to the power that it's giving me. You know, and like I said, it's only going in one way. Like, you can like hypothesize about the ethics of it. You know, AI is coming in like guns took over the world. Just pick up a gun and get parity. Because if you don't, you're going to get steamrolled and you're going to be part of the useless eaters that hasn't been putting down the neural pathways of how to interact with this hyper intelligent exotic life form. You're going to get left in the dust by people like me. That's just going to you know, right now it's going to be like, I know how to use the AI tools. One day I'm going to have a Neuralink in. That Neuralink is going to give me like a gigabit, you know, connection directly into this, you know, AI system. Like the amount of power that we're going to have when that event happens is going to be beyond anything I could have ever possibly imagined. Right? I'll be able to build up entire factories, you know, do armies. Like that's going to be the power that these individuals are going to have in the future.
They say power corrupts, though, and absolute power corrupts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be corrupt. Absolutely, it's going to be corrupt. Yeah. Yeah. That's what keeps me up at night. That's the reason why, you know, I'm a nihilist. I don't believe in any system out there because that system is designed to self-perpetuate a group of insiders to take and expropriate everybody else's, you know, productive value. And this is the final chapter of all that, where they just automate everything. And they're like, oh, guess what? It turns out the conspiracies are right. And by the way, this is ours now. And we'll give you universal basic income, but you got to take this like deep state mystery sauce. And by the way, you can't look at it. It's mind-numbingly complex, but trust us, we only have your best interest in mind, as we always have.
That's a fairly dystopian outlook, but not necessarily outside the realm of possibility or likelihood.
I would just like to interject that Deep State Special Sauce sounds like a fantastic band name. Sorry.
Deep State Special Sauce?
Yeah, you said it.
Deep State.
Not to like throw you all off, but
tell it to write a song called Deep Space or Deep State Special Sauce.
So what happens when somebody like Sammy Kamkar, who just likes to screw around with stuff to see how it works, ends up developing something that becomes self-perpetuating with AI embedded in it, like the MySpace worm, but with an LLM backend that can continue to spread and perpetuate and do resource exhaustion attacks across the majority of the internet? Like, what happens then? Like, when we can't get online because somebody's used this shit to fuck with us.
Yeah, that's what they're gonna do. Of course, they're gonna do that. Like, yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. Like, how are they gonna resist that power? Right? They just create a cyber event, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're gonna have to ban the plebeians from using this artificial intelligence.
We've already taken
our own
South American countries offline just to see what would happen. You know,
and before you have to have a license to use AI.
You know, during an event where we want everybody looking one way, we take down the internet. You know, or like they already do that as part of the playbook of CIA clandestine operations. It's not outside the possibility that
it's always
those in power, but don't want other people to get that power, so they will intentionally make it more difficult for us to access these tools. And
yeah, it's always DNS.
Yep. Yeah. And it's not that they will be worried about software engineers, but like, why can't I just have an LLM whisper into my ear so I can like plan world domination? You know, like that's what's on the horizon. Like the amount of power that one person can wield is exponentially increasing, sort of like Moore's law, right? Like a good software engineer can like if you have a company and you don't have that technological like underpinning, messed up. Like your host. It's like all these companies that do these services are actually all software companies masquerading as like an Uber, right? Or a DoorDash, right? Technology company. But they're like, oh, we deliver food. No, you're a technology company with applications in the food industry. And if you're part of that clique, then you're going to do really well. And if you're not, you're going to be on the outside. You know, it's like learn to code doesn't work on everyone. Like most people fucking hate coding, unfortunately. I think it's more addicting than video games. Like when I got into coding, like my addiction to video games just stopped overnight. What is going on with this?
We had the creator of TazBot on here a few weeks ago, and he built something that can essentially play video games, actually using the controller, or at least the inputs of the controller, just from playing back sequences of previous gameplays, which is pretty freaking cool, but not AI. But when we start tossing an AI type project into something like that, where we're giving it direct control of a machine, like Claude is trying to do with their machine control stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I can foresee a lot of bad things happening when we give an AI unfettered access to a computer and the internet and the ability to code whatever the hell it wants, and not have the API charges racking up as a result. Like, you know, a local model that could do this shit would be, you know, in the wrong hands, a nation state that's not our friend. You know, I see why the military-industrial complex is so heavily invested in trying to outwit the enemy. I just hope they don't make Skynet in the fucking process.
They have to, because if we don't do it, the Chinese will. Like,
so the Chinese are probably saying we have to because we don't. The U.S. will.
So it's like an arms race.
You know, are we going to need like to have a nuclear bomb level kind of deterrent to prevent the escalation from going to a point where, you know, it's scary to think about all the different things that could happen in a black pill kind of way. I'm more of an optimist naturally, honestly. I really do hope this technology will make everybody's life better, not destroy it. But this decides for both, man. It can go either way.
If you hope for the best and prepare for the worst, you're good all the way around.
You see these jackasses in Vegas at like the AI Trust Council meetings, and they're all like, yeah, how can we limit it? How can we toss a limiter on it? How can we make it dumber? How can we control it? And I don't think it's necessarily something that can be controlled because it's like evolution much more rapidly. So how do we ensure that the people who are going to use this don't end up doing evil, so to speak? You know, it's not like we can embed the what was it, Asimov, the laws of robotics.
Asimov's laws of robotics. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Like,
I think this is all going to be. I think this is all going to be like post-war thinking. Like after this great war event that's gonna descend on us in the future, because they're going to have something that's so big that justifies them radically changing our society, and then lo and behold, we don't
aliens,
have
man. We'll pull aliens out of the closet. We'll be like, the aliens are here, and we'll just create the aliens, and then, you know.
Why aliens? They have the AI. All they have to do is give us sex bots and AI companions that will actually embedded in its LLM will be, you know, like a traitorous intention that could kill you if you know, present it as a threat. Like we're gonna have all these spy devices. The surveillance grid is going up. You know, I'm sorry that like just extrapolate where they're going to be like in 5 years from now. It's going to be unreal.
We've seen a company from China get banned from OpenAI for essentially using their LLM to code their own LLM. That was a specific subset of that data, and they were racking up API bills, and they literally got told by OpenAI, you can't use our shit anymore because you're just using it to make a competitor.
Right.
But how do you stop that if anybody can sign up for an account? And now it's like, I digress.
We did the same thing with Mike Adams in Natural News, right? Like we used synthetic data generated by an LLM, like the O1 model, and we used it to generate the training data that we fed into the AI to fine tune it, right? Like everyone's doing that. That's why we're getting all these models.
Yeah, but when we went from GPT-2 to 3, there was it's like the dirty GPT-2 that was just generating adult content and porn because the governor they put in place had essentially logic flip somewhere, and they ended up, encouraging bad behavior and discouraging good behavior. And overnight, it became essentially like 4chan or Tay, just spouting out the worst shit you could hear on the internet. It's like there is that issue if we're going to rely on an AI to train an AI that the logic could get flipped or something bad could happen.
Yeah. You have to have adversarial AIs that are specifically designed to understand what's going on in other AIs, because like we can't even really understand what's going on. It's sort of a mystery box, right? Like at least with computer code, you can look at the logic and figure out what's going on. Like these are just a network of connections to generate. Like it's literally like a 1 terabyte CSV file.
Have you looked at Tiny Neural Network on GitHub? It's like a very simple neural network to understand how they work. My friend Colin was showing me it the other day. There's some really cool use cases, I think. And also, when this technology, right now, we need like the greatest graphics cards. You know, like a 4090 if you want to run some of these new models. You need all this expensive fucking shit. And let alone if you want to train them and not just use RAG data after. Like the computational requirements are very, very intensive. But what happens when we start figuring out how to do this on consumer grade hardware? And then you don't need, an H100 if you can just distribute a task. It's like
you have to be licensed to use it. That's what's going to happen. They're going to regulate it. You have to reporting requirements and surveillance in order for you to use it. So they're not going to want this much power in people they don't control.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Well, I think I've exhausted every question I can think of for at least this session with you, man. It's been great shooting a show with you again. I miss talking to you. We used to talk a bit more. You did help me up my game with chicks too, which was pretty good, freaking impressive. I didn't expect to hear from the Whistleblower helping me up my game. But
let's hear it.
Man, it's been good knowing you so far, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on our podcast, shoot the shit with us.
And good job with the podcast, guys. You guys are really putting a lot of effort, and it shows. You got a great website. 40,000 people. That's
shout out to Alki.
Yeah. Rob Stalky, yep.
Yeah, shout out to Alki, man.
Yeah,
you guys are doing a good job. Sludge and I met Alki at DEF CON. She had hacked the DEF CON badge, which had an error in it, wouldn't let you save a Nintendo game that was embedded on the cartridge. And she found a way to transfer out the items using the built-in IR blaster to her hack RF. And then replay them so she could essentially load up in-game items to other people's shit, which was really
and it
cool.
was crashing badges, and my badge was the only one that wasn't vulnerable to her attack when I met her.
You added more RAM to his badge.
Yeah, I had an extra RAM chip in mine.
Base, dude. Can't stress this enough.
What's your favorite conference? I want to ask you guys that.
TorCon.
TorCon? Why?
No, CactusCon.
CactusCon. Is that in Arizona?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It started out in Dave & Buster's, and now they're in like the Phoenix Convention Center.
SummerCon myself.
Yeah,
I'm doing a conference with my friend Nathan, who hopped on here earlier. We're trying to teach crypto people to be better at security stuff, since a lot of security guys don't want to work with crypto people and vice versa. Trying to bridge that gap, and we're calling that one Integrity Show, but it used to be called the Crypto Shit Show, and it's fun. I got to hack a Bitcoin ATM. I made it play Doom.
So how'd you hack the Bitcoin ATM? Like it's basically running like a Tegra board or something on it, and
it's actually an x86 PC under the hood. Once you have physical access,
it's probably pretty easy.
I imagine.
I've seen ATMs running XP still. Like what?
Wow. Okay.
XP is really great until you throw drivers on it, and then it goes to shit.
This was running Windows 10. It just wasn't, an encrypted hard disk or anything. And, like
Easy
the
mode.
guy from Chainbytes was very nice and let us inside the ATM. We didn't need to break access, and put one on testnet and let us. Me and my friend Sheldon went to town on it. We got some good intelligence out of it, and hopefully he's going to bring it back to one of the other shows and let us play with it again. But yeah, I mean, I'm very passionate about this kind of stuff, just like Sledge, and CrowdStrong and all my kind of co-hosts in Delphi are about, getting people up to speed on the technology and also just shooting the shit with each other in kind of a happy hour kind of setting at least once a week, even though we're broadcasting it online. I think some of the best conversations just come from shooting the shit and not actually having an agenda.
Yep.
So
The idea behind the podcast is we're sitting behind a virtual bar.
Yeah. The other question is, and here's the I got posed this earlier. When are we going to do a live cast together, guys? When are we going to go meet up somewhere?
DEF CON, man.
Is that what we're doing? Hacker Summer Camp?
I've got a guy that has the stuff because he always does one. I was supposed to do it this year, but I ended up not having time.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, you and I were very busy time-wise, Sledge, with the chicken. That was very...
Oh, everybody was banging my cock.
Well, I haven't been to DEF CON since, 17, the year I met you, Sledge?
Yeah.
So, it's been a hot second for me. I'm sure it would be a blast now that I am useful.
You're in the industry now. Welcome
I
to
am.
the club.
It's a way.
So I met Zach at a political conference that I was at with AFL, but I think Zach, if you came out to one of these like actual hacker cons, man, I think you'd have a lot more fun than you did even at our pool party. Like you see how hackers party, I think you'll have a lot more fun. You should definitely come out.
Hit me up for a good one. I may be able to do it.
Come to Hacker Summer Camp.
Hacker Summer Camp
the whole time.
It's almost winter. Summer camp.
Yeah, that's next
Black
year.
Hat DEF CON B-sides.
Yeah, Black Hat DEF CON B-sides, yeah. All that. Hacker Summer
Vegas.
Camp.
Sounds like
But
a
hey,
lot.
Zach,
CounterSurveil conference.
you
It'll
seem
be like
like
DEF CON, but
perfect.
hookers and booze. No.
Count me in.
Gang.
You seem like the perfect guy to be a guest on Part of the Problem podcast with Dave Smith.
Sure.
I don't know.
I don't know if I have any ends there, but that would be worth pursuing.
Like, love me or hate me, I say some pretty fucking wild shit, and I've got a story that's out of this world. So, it's always going to be an entertaining time. I consistently score high on these podcasts. So, and I enjoy it from time to time. I used to be on the circuit 4 a day, but now
It's like, for context, it's a extreme libertarian podcast.
Great. Let's do it.
I think you would be a great guest on there.
Yeah. What happens when a nihilist and a libertarian that really believes in libertarianism get together and see what happens?
It could be fun.
Yeah.
They'll kill the last god together, and that's government.
Guys, remember AI.
I found
AI code, Zackies/AI code at GitHub. Pip install. It's on PyPy. Pip install advanced AI code. Then type in AI code. If you do pip install AI code, you're going to get a weird package, and it's an unfortunate name. I kind of want to call it, rename it AI Chad. So if you come here in a year and it says this is now AI Chad, this website at least will still be able to point to it. But this is going to 4x your productivity.
Does it need any specific Python environment, like 3.7 or something like that? Do I use
I think 3.10 is what I've tested it on. Probably run. See, one of the things I've done to make this run well is that the front end is a front end to the middle layer, which talks to the back end. And that middle layer, what it does is it isolates everything. It bootstraps a virtual environment with Python 3.11. And so it's really easy on your system because it's not going to start stashing pinned versions of popular AI libraries that are going to blow out NumPy and the other critical libraries that you have on your system. So it's very easy on your system. That's just why I designed it. It gets rid of all the problems of the backend app, which is pinned dependencies of PyTorch and shit, right? You don't want that because everyone's got compatibility issues. So
if I wanted to run a local model with this, like we had talked about before, like StarCoder, what would my hardware specs need to be in order to run that locally and not have it be slower than dog shit?
What's your GTX? Do you have an NVIDIA chip?
Yeah, I've got an NVIDIA chip. I'm not rocking it 2 generations back though.
How many gigabytes do you have?
That 80 Ti gang.
Now here's the thing. I take it all back. Here's the thing. Look, the small models suck. And that's the problem. These large language models that are hosted by Microsoft, they just fucking rock. Claude, nothing beats Claude right now. It's on the leaderboard. The only thing that can come close is Gemini for some strange reason, and OpenAI's one of their models. If you're going to do a small locally hosted language model, like don't even bother with it. Like it's just going to waste your time.
Well, it's like another box to offload the processing too. Like use my old Hashcat rig, and a couple of GPUs in it. Split the model across them.
These models that OpenAI have is they're distributed across a network of GPUs. It's just like, how are you going to compete? Like,
my main concern is my privacy, and also the fact that anything I tell this, it's getting uploaded somewhere. And is like,
we're training it. That's the problem. We're training it. There's nothing we can do about it because it's either not grab the ring of power, or stay silent and sit on the sidelines as this AI revolution, happens. But
it's like, but do you continue to feed the machine, or do you bite the hand that feeds? It's like, what do I do?
The privacy thing is a big deal because I've heard stories of friends that are like analysts, and they would take an alert, pop it into AI, but there's client data in that. So that becomes a problem there. But it'll answer.
Especially if they're then tokenizing that and training their model on it, they could spit that back out to somebody else later.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an actual thing that happens on a daily basis.
What's that?
Yep.
What we were just talking about, people putting unsanitized data into AI in order to get analysis of it. I see it happen more often than I care to think about.
I've seen people create freaking file converters online that are just essentially traps to grab people's PDFs from work and bring them up in like the search results. And then you've got somebody just harnessing a bunch of data from different companies who don't want to buy PDF conversion tools.
I literally got up onto an analyst the other night because of that. I caught an analyst putting client data into an AI to get it to spit out what was wrong, and it was really sad too because the answer was right there in the log. They didn't need the AI.
You didn't even read the alert.
It's like
at least just convert like JSON into something more readable, or
no. It was like if this was the 1800s, we'd be going behind the woodshed right now. That's what I said. They didn't understand that, so I gave them a copy of Old Yeller to watch.
Another reason to want a local model also, if you're going to be doing something like parsing JSON or something simple and repetitive, or analyzing alerts, and they're going to be very similar, why the heck would I want to, one, spend the API cost, and two, upload my confidential data to some unknown third party that could then use it to train another model? It's terrifying from a risk perspective. If you're going to put on the CISO hat, your company data could be going out the window to all these tools that then are going to spit it back out to a competitor. It's
right.
Ooh, that's also a good
I
point.
think Google themselves give, $200,000 to any new AI startup as soon as they get their Series 7 or whatever funding. Like they'll give you $200,000 towards free AI. I'm pretty sure they're definitely, if it's free, you're the product almost always. So,
and this is Google, I mean, do no evil, right?
Themselves.
Oddly, that's missing.
Who said they use DeepSpeak? Who said to use DeepSpeak for their coding?
What did you say? TeamSpeak?
Who said that they use DeepSpeak for their coding?
DeepSpeak. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah, it's down here. Like this is where it ranks, 31%. The newer one is 32. The leaderboard right here beyond with a huge margin is Cloud. This is for the refactor. If you go up to
new Star Coder 2.5 that came out like a week ago.
Star Coder. Oh, they don't have at least it's on the leaderboard yet. I think it was in the release notes. They were saying that they just outlined it. So you can plug it in. They've got like some sort of flexible backend that can take in most LLMs. But for some reason, Cloud just smokes everyone. And that's what I'm using. I'm using the Sonnet thing. And it's like every month I get a free upgrade and get way more powerful.
Sonnet now is the one that's got within their API the ability to do device control and actually control your computer through screenshots.
Yes.
Cursor presses. I saw the demo for that, and they asked it to do a very simple task, and it started going on the internet looking at pictures of national parks. was like, why would it do that unless it's trained on actual data of people working for real, and people like to slag off at work, so it's just following that pattern.
Right.
It's interesting to see. Definitely not AGI or actually thinking behind it, just following what it thinks would be done, but still interesting that it did that.
Yep.
All right, I'm all out of questions. We've been going for 3 hours. And
Yeah, we're hitting
my
3
girl upstairs
hours.
is probably going to kill me soon if I don't come upstairs for dinner.
Yep.
So let us end here, which I think is a good point. But on the outro, why don't you plug your book and your website and anything else you want to plug for the next minute or two?
Yeah, if you want to see how the sausage is made, check out my book. I disclose it all. I also get it for my website. Google, let me just get up there. GoogleLeaksBook.com. I had an expired SSL cert until this weekend. Thank you, Frank, for letting me know. Get the juicy bits here. President Trump and RFK both said I was an American hero. I got that going for me. That became a lot more valuable recently with the election of Donald Trump.
Nice.
But I do want to show you one thing in here, which is an actual slide deck. And this, I actually saw this in multiple parts of the company. So it wasn't just like somebody that was a little bit nuts. So it was part of their internal propaganda.
They removed the "don't do evil."
All right, here it is.
Yeah.
It's the 4 steps on how to program people like us. It starts off with training data are collected and classified. Step 2 is algorithms are programmed. Now it would be /trained. Third step is media are filtered, ranked, aggregated, or generated. And then the step 4 is people like us are programmed. This is not linear. This is a cycle. And so what happens is that feeds back into itself, and then you go on to the next cycle, and round and round and round we go until one day we are all in a different Overton window. And that's what they wanted to do. And this was actually not done by some engineer. It was actually done by their AI ethicist, believe it or not, Michelle Mitchell. She should know better. Like literally an AI ethicist is plotting to, take over the internet and democracy as we know it through a totalitarian AI censorship program that she brought in called machine learning fairness. So
It's kind of funny that they had the balls to even put this down on a paper.
it's part of their magic, right? If they normalize it and just here's the thing. I saw my leftists my fellow colleagues fall for it because they're leftists and they go into groupthink. And so when everyone around them is saying, oh, we're battling misinformation, we're using AI to be able to protect Americans, they're like, fuck yeah, I'm down for that. Right. And I'm like, do you even know what this means? Right. Like they just can't put it together. And it's the way that they normalize it and have it out in the open. And for some reason, there wasn't a line of people lining up to blow the whistle on this. It turns out I was the first. That was the big mind-blowing thing for me, is that how little opposition there was, is they just plainly said it out there and machine learning fairness. They started to come out with that internally in the 2018, before I blew the whistle and turned it into a bad word. And so
you blew the whistle on Google. You think any other companies have very similar thought processes and are working towards almost an exact same goal besides Google?
OpenAI? Yeah, very bad, awful. I hope the whole thing crumbles down on top of that guy's ugly face. I don't like to talk shit, but Sam Altman is a special kind of evil, and they would not put him into that position of power unless he wasn't blackmailed up to the hilt. And that's what he is, and that's why he's up there, and that's just why he's playing all the games. That's just why he's, being a sycophant to this organization, because he wants to be part of that center of power. Right. That's his little thing. He pays the homage. He gets to be part of the club. And that's what he's doing. He'll say anything in order to gain power. He's the exact wrong person that needs to be in charge of the artificial intelligence. And I'm so happy that his company is collapsing and that Sonnet now is handily beaten, because we need to get a diversity of ownership and stakeholders in charge of this AI.
So what's the goal of the people who are making Claude and Sonnet, the Anthropic people? Are they similarly minded in their end goals, or we know anything about them?
I don't, and I would love to have someone with a strong opinion either way, but I just don't have one. I just don't know. They almost like none of them are celebrities like Sam Altman is.
Got it. Last but not least, we have a comment from the crowd here. Not a lot of people have the mental fortitude to be a whistleblower. Most people want to ignore the evil around them and get by avoiding having their livelihood taken away. I think that's a good sentiment. It does take a special kind of person to blow the whistle when you see something really evil happening and letting the world know what's going on and not just going along with it, like group think, group speak. So like our freedom seed friend in the audience there said, I agree with that sentiment completely. And once again, I just wanted to say thank you for taking some time out of your day. Hopefully you'll come back again. I'm sure you are probably the most controversial guest we've had so far, but I enjoy it, and I kind of thrive on controversy, hence the name Havoc. But once again, thank you. And all of our co-hosts here, thank you for joining us today. And I just want to also say Alt Key Evelyn had a family emergency. I really do hope that her friends and their child are okay, and she had to hop off. So
I'm sorry I haven't been quite as present. I've been keeping up with her and everything else. So please excuse my lack of addition to this episode.
no, appreciate you staying on the horn with her and making sure she's okay. She's going through obviously a very dark time with what's going on there. Yep. So once again, thank you all for coming. This has been the CounterSurveil Podcast, and this is the 3-hour mark. So I'm going to end it. Zach, thank you again. As well.
This is our second longest one.
This has definitely been a long one.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Zach. It was cool.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.